Bang, bang, bang. The old security door was pounded violently, sending dust cascading down. In the cramped, narrow, rented room, the air was murky thick with the stench of mold. Su-chan woke abruptly from a nightmare, his heart pounding violently, as if it would burst through his chest. From outside the door came a man's savage roar, a demonic sound, like a soul-demanding curse. Su-chan, don't play dead with me. I know you're in there. Manager Wang said, 3 days. 3 days. If you can't come up with that 3 million, don't expect to leave Haiyun City in one piece. Your kidney's corny as liver. Tisk, they're all priced clearly on the black market. Won't make 3 million, but it'll wipe out a big chunk of your deadbeat dad's debt. You hear me? Another heavy kick to the door, followed by a receding trail of cursing and cluttered footsteps. Su-chan clenched the yellowed bedsheet beneath him, his knuckles white from the force veins bulging on the back of his hands. He panted heavily, his eyes a twisted mix of extreme terror and frenzied hatred. 3 million. For him now, this was not only an astronomical figure, but also a death warrant. 6 months ago, his parents died in a bizarre car accident, and the family business left behind was conspired against by partners, not only stripping all assets, but also burdening him with this enormous usury debt. The creditor Wang Tianlong was known in Haiyun City as a man who would literally strip the flesh from your bones. If he said head cut out your kidney, he wouldn't just trim a nail. 3 days. Su-chan gritted out the 2 words, his voice as hoarse as if scraped by sandpaper. He got up from the bed and looked around. This basement room of less than 10 square meters, aside from a bed, a broken wardrobe, and instant noodle cups everywhere, was practically bare. Despair surged like a tide, threatening to drown him. I refuse to accept this. I won't be dismantled into parts and sold off like this. Su-chan, his eyes blood red, like a cornered lone wolf, frantically started ransacking the room, turning over every box and drawer. He wanted to find something, anything. A piece of valuable jewelry, a forgotten bankbook. Anything that could fetch money could buy him even one more day. The wardrobe was knocked over, drawers pulled out and thrown to the floor, old clothes flying everywhere. Nothing, nothing, nothing again. In this broken house, where even a rat would leave in tears, what valuable thing could still exist? Su-chan slumped to the ground, panting heavily. His gaze wandered aimlessly, finally resting on an inconspicuous socket in the corner. In the floor gap next to the socket, it seemed a coin was stuck. Was that the last hope? Even 1 yuan was still money. Su-chan pounced over, reaching out his fingers to pry. Yet the moment his finger touched the coin, the old exposed copper wiring in the socket suddenly burst out a blind zzzt. A blue electric arc instantly struck through Su-chan's finger. Aunt! Su-chan screamed, flung back by the current, crashing heavily into the bedboard behind him. A violent numbness swept through his body, his heart seeming to skip a beat. Blood dripped from his blackened fingertip, landing precisely on a piece of ancient jade pendant he always wore on his chest. It was the only heirloom left by his parents, a piece of mottled, seemingly worthless dark jade. Just as the blood seeped into the jade's veins, a sudden anomaly occurred. The originally dull jade pendant suddenly erupted with an eerie red light, then cracked with a sharp sound, shattering before Su-chan's horrified eyes. The broken jade pieces did not fall to the ground, but turned into a stream of light, striking into Su-chan's brow with lightning speed. Boom. Su-chan felt as if a nuclear bomb had detonated inside his skull, the excruciating pain nearly making him faint. Then a cold, mechanical, yet grand voice sounded without warning in the depths of his consciousness. Genetic binding successful. Energy source connected. Dual world quantum trade gate system activated. Host Su-chan, current authority level 1, novice protection period. Su-chan clutched his head, groaning in pain. Before he could even react to the source of the voice, the scene before his eyes transformed dramatically. The originally dark and damp wall of the rented room rippled like water before his eyes. A blue glowing light gate about 2 meters high materialized out of thin air, floating 3 inches above the ground. Through that light gate, Su-chan no longer saw the moldy wallpaper of the next room, but a completely alien world. The sky there was a dead leaden gray, as if sunlight never penetrated. In the distance, collapsed skyscrapers stood like giant tombstones on the wasteland. Some buildings were snapped in half, exposed rebar, like ferocious fangs piercing the sky, while others were completely overgrown with unknown green vines exuding an eerie vitality. The streets were wide, but broken, abandoned cars clogging them like a metal river stretching to the horizon. The wind blowing from the light gate carried a nauseating mix of decay, rust, and dust. That was the smell of death. Where's this? Su-chan stared in shock at everything before him, even forgetting the pain in his finger. The mechanical voice sounded again in his mind. Dual world gate opened. World behind the gate, wasteland, apocalypse, designation Earth 73. Novice benefit, first cross-world travel, exempts energy cost, and provides 24-hour primary aura concealment protection. Enter. Apocalypse. Su-chan's heart raced. As a modern man, he had read countless novels and seen countless movies, so he knew exactly what those 2 words meant. Danger zombies, radiation death. Reason told him he should immediately step away from this strange light gate. But the despair of reality gripped his throat like an icy hand. 3 days. In just 3 days, Wang Tianlong's men would come again. And when they did, he would be forcibly strapped to an operating table, his organs removed amidst desperate screams, and then thrown into a ditch like trash. That was an ending worse than death. Su Chen turned his head and glanced at the only half-bag of expired moldy bread left on the table, which he had planned to be his dinner tonight. Stay here and die. Go in, and maybe there's a sliver of hope. Su Chen's eyes gradually turned fierce, the madness of a gambler staking everything he had. A man dies under the open sky or lives for 10,000 years. He grabbed the half-bag of moldy bread, his only supply at the moment. Then he took a deep breath, gritted his teeth, lifted his foot, and stepped across the threshold into the blue light gate. Space seemed to shift in that instant. The sensation of weightlessness lasted only a moment, followed by the tactile feeling of solid ground. Su Chen opened his eyes and found he was already standing on that abandoned street. The air was more filthy than imagined, the pungent stench making him retch involuntarily. Dead silence surrounded him, only the wind whining through the ruins like the wailing of spirits. This was the apocalypse. Su Chen vigilantly scanned his surroundings, his body tense to the extreme. Although the system had mentioned novice protection, he dared not be careless. He took a few cautious steps forward, the broken stones beneath his feet making slight crunching sounds, oddly jarring in the silent environment. Suddenly his gaze was drawn to a sight near his feet. It was a skeleton leaning against a discarded lamppost. The flesh on the bones had long rotted away, leaving only white bones. But from the remaining fabric fragments on the skeleton, one could tell the person had been wearing an extremely exquisite hand-tailored suit. Even soaked in mud for who knows how many years, the luxury of the fabric was still discernible. Yet what truly made Su Chen's pupils contract was not the skeleton itself. It was the left hand of the skeleton, which had only finger bones left. On the middle finger bone, symbol of power and status, a massive diamond ring was prominently worn. The diamond was the size of a pigeon egg, still refracting a dazzling, blinding brilliance under the gray sky. And on the ground beside the skeleton, a torn, genuine leather briefcase lay open. Several heavy, glittering, golden bar-shaped objects were casually scattered on the muddy ground, unattended, as if they were discarded trash. Those were gold bars. Su Chen's breath caught in his throat. Su Chen felt his blood rush to his head. In an instant, his eardrums filled with the thunderous pounding of his own heartbeat. He swallowed hard, his throat parched and aching. In modern society, for 3 million, he was driven to the brink of selling his kidney to survive. And here in this ravaged wasteland, gold and diamonds, the ultimate symbols of wealth, lay discarded in muddy water like rubble and debris by the roadside. This stark visual contrast and cognitive dissonance caused Su Chen's mind to briefly short-circuit. He instinctively crouched down and reached a trembling hand toward the diamond ring, cold and hard. When the pigeon egg-sized diamond ring was truly in his hand, the tactile reality told him this was no illusion. This ring, if placed in a modern auction, would start at millions. Su Chen quickly grabbed the gold bars on the ground. Heavy and dense, the bars bore the 99.99 purity mark and a bank stamp. Though stained with sludge, wiping them with his sleeve revealed a dazzling golden luster that instantly stung his eyes. I'm rich. I'm going to be rich. Su Chen murmured, his voice trembling with ecstasy. He quickly stuffed the ring and bars into his pockets, then like a greedy miser began surveying his surroundings. This look made his heart shudder. The details he had overlooked due to tension now appeared vividly before him. On both sides of the street, various luxury cars were parked, half destroyed. A Rolls-Royce Phantom was half sunken into a pothole, its spirit of ecstasy emblem long gone, but its handcrafted body still bore an air of former elegance. A Ferrari was crushed under a fallen concrete slab, lying like scrap metal in the middle of the road. Not far away, in front of a luxury boutique's shattered window, broken glass was mixed with countless Hermes and LV bags. These top-tier luxuries, once the obsession of urbanites who would max out credit cards to possess them, now lay soaked in black water, covered in moss and serving as rat nests. In this apocalypse, civilization had collapsed, order had been destroyed. When survival itself became a luxury, money, luxury goods and cars, once symbols of status, lost all meaning, becoming worthless. Only food, water, and weapons were the true currency here. A lightning bolt of an idea flashed through Su Chen's mind: cross-realm trader. By exploiting the enormous price disparity between the two worlds, he could become the king of both. Modern junk food could be an unparalleled delicacy here, while the worthless gold here was true hard currency in the modern world. Calm down. I must calm down. Su Chen took several deep breaths of the tainted air, forcing himself to steady his nerves. His top priority now was to get enough money to deal with the threat of Wang Tianlong. Since there were gold bars on the street, what about a jewelry store? Su Chen raised his head, scanning the shop signs along the street with eyes as sharp as a hawk's. Soon his gaze locked onto a broken sign 100 meters away: Chow Tai Fook Jewelry. Though only half of it remained dangling precariously, those 3 words were dearer to Su Chen than his own father. He hunched over, stepping as lightly as possible, using abandoned vehicles as cover to move quickly toward the jewelry store. Although he had the system's basic aura concealment, he didn't dare gamble on whether it worked against sight. The moment he rushed into the jewelry store, Su Chen was stunned. The entire interior was a mess. All the display counters were smashed, clearly looted in the early days of the apocalypse. But perhaps because people later realized gold couldn't be eaten or drunk, or because everyone was fleeing from zombies, a large number of gold and silver jewelry was scattered on the floor. Gold necklaces, gold bangles, gold rings. They lay like trash covering the dusty floor, some even trampled flat, but that didn't diminish their golden essence. Mine. All mine. Su Chen's eyes gleamed. He threw himself onto the ground, using both hands to frantically stuff the gold jewelry into his pockets. His pants pockets, shirt pockets, even his socks were stuffed full. Just as he was about to leave, his peripheral vision caught a half-open vault door in the back of the shop. The door appeared to have been forced open, leaving a gap. Su Chen inexplicably walked over and pushed the heavy steel door open. Inside the vault, it was mostly empty, with most shelves collapsed. But on a nondescript shelf in the corner, a dark metal brick sat conspicuously. Su Chen walked over and blew hard to remove the dust. A dazzling golden radiance burst forth. It was a gold bar. And not the ordinary investment bars, judging by its size and weight. It weighed at least 1 kilogram. This was likely the store's reserve or industrial gold that had never been inventoried. At current gold prices, $500 per gram, this piece alone was worth over $500,000. Adding the jewelry stuffed in his pockets, his haul exceeded $2 million. Overjoyed, Su Chen reached for what might be a second gold bar beside it. Warning: host current level is LV1, portable storage space, not yet unlocked. Warning: physical load has exceeded critical limit. Excessive weight may cause transmission failure or severe bodily damage. Su Chen froze. The feeling of having wealth within reach, but being unable to take it, was worse than death. Damn it. Levels. I have to level up. Su Chen ground his teeth, his desire for advancement reaching a peak. Just then, roar. A bone-chilling roar came from around the street corner. It sounded less like a human and more like a beast with phlegm stuck in its throat, a cry of endless hunger and brutality. Su Chen shuddered and spun around. Through the broken storefront glass, he saw a humanoid creature staggering out of the shadows. Its clothes were tattered, its grayish skin covered with festering sores, half of its cheek missing, exposing pale. Those murky yellowed eyes were fixed on the jewelry store. Despite the system's aura concealment, the noise Su Chen made while rummaging had clearly attracted its attention. It was a zombie. A real living zombie. An icy chill shot from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Though Su Chen had ambitions for wealth, he was still just an ordinary person. Faced with a monster that only existed in horror movies, instinctive fear took over. The zombie seemed to confirm movement inside the store and suddenly accelerated from a stagger to a sprint, opening its maw wide as it lunged toward the shop. Its speed far exceeded Su Chen's expectations. Return. System. Return. Su Chen hugged the heavy kilogram gold bar tightly, his other hand clutching the pocket full of jewelry, and screamed in his mind with all his might. Just as the zombie's rotting claws were about to touch the glass window, a hum. A flash of azure light. Su Chen's figure vanished instantly. Bang! The zombie slammed into the shop wall, letting out an angry roar as it clutched only empty air. Modern world rented room. A flash of light, and Su Chen landed roughly on the cold floor. The familiar smell of mildew, the familiar cramped space, now felt unprecedentedly safe. His heart still pounded violently, as if it would jump out of his throat. He gasped for air, cold sweat. After a long while, Su Chen finally came to his senses. He looked down at his arms. The heavy, glittering kilogram gold bar lay quietly in his embrace, radiating a captivating luster. His pockets were bulging with gold necklaces and rings. The pigeon egg-sized diamond ring was on his thumb, sparkling brilliantly. The decay and poverty of the room formed a stark, absurd, yet true contrast with the unimaginable wealth in his arms. Shaking, Su Chen pulled out his phone from his pocket. The screen lit up, displaying the date: 2 days left until Wang Tianlong's deadline. Su Chen stared at the gold bar in his hand. The fear in his eyes gradually faded, replaced by an unprecedented fervor and ambition. He slowly rose to his feet and slammed the gold bar onto the table with a dull thud. 3 million. A cold smirk curled at the corner of his mouth, a fierce glint in his eyes. "Ha, to me now, that's just a number." The morning sunlight streamed through the gaps in the curtains into the rented room, where tiny particles of dust floated in the air. Su Chen hadn't slept all night, yet his spirit was alarmingly exhilarated. He had spent the entire night sorting the gold he had brought back. The 1 kilogram gold bar was of the finest purity, bearing no markings, likely raw material that hadn't yet been stamped by the jewelry store. As for the scattered gold trinkets, their outdated designs and stains would make them troublesome to sell, potentially attracting lowball offers. Sell the gold bar first to solve the immediate crisis. Su Chen made his decision. He pulled a black baseball cap low over his head, donned a large black mask, and threw on a roomy windbreaker. He tucked the heavy gold bar into an inner pocket, securing it close to his body. Pushing open the door, the outside world buzzed with chaotic reality. Chen didn't opt for obscure little gold shops. Instead, he hailed a cab and headed straight for the city center's largest chain jewelry store, Jindingxuan. Big stores had many rules, but they could handle large transactions and valued their reputation, unlike shady shops that might resort to robbery or murder. Stepping into Jindingxuan, the blast of cold air hit him. The store was lavishly decorated with several uniformed clerks chatting idly. Seeing Chen's fully armed, yet shabby appearance, the clerks exchanged glances, their eyes flickering with a mix of wariness and disdain. "Sir, are you here to buy gold or exchange styles?" A middle-aged man with a name tag reading "Floor Manager" approached. His tone was polite, but he deliberately positioned himself in front of the counter, his gaze sizing up Chen as if guarding against a thief. Chen wasted no words. He walked directly to the VIP seating area and sat down on the sofa, his voice low, "Selling gold. Big load." The manager frowned, sneering inwardly. What big load could this poor kid have? At most, it was some thin gold chain head picked up somewhere. "Sir, our gold recycling requires ID verification and the handling fee." Bang! Chen, tired of his rambling, pulled the heavy gold bar from his chest and slammed it onto the marble coffee table. The dull thud silenced the entire hall instantly. That thick, pure gold radiated an oppressive opulence under the lights. The manager's eyes nearly popped out. His once contemptuous expression froze, his mouth gaping wide enough to hold an egg. "Thighs. 1 kilogram, 24-karat gold." Chen stared coldly at him. "Test it. I'm in a hurry." The manager swallowed hard, his attitude doing a complete 180 as he bowed almost to his knees. "Please wait. I'll summon the appraiser immediately." "Shall we hurry?" "Brew tea. The best de Hongpo." The subsequent process went exceptionally smoothly. After fire testing and spectral analysis, the results showed the gold bar's purity was astonishingly high, even purer than standard 24-karat gold on the market, a product of future technology purification. At the day's gold price, after deducting necessary fees, the final transaction price settled at 40 yuan. Ding! With a crisp SMS notification, Chen glanced at his phone screen. "Your savings account ending in 5678 received RMB 4200000 at 0930. Current balance 420012. 50 yuan. At that moment, Chen felt it was the most beautiful music in the world. The boulder that had weighed on his heart for half a year finally shifted a little. Though it was still far from paying off the 3 million debt, this was merely the harvest from his first crossing. This was just the beginning. Leaving Jindingxuan, Chen didn't go home. Instead, he hailed a truck and headed straight for Haiyun City's largest agricultural and sideline products wholesale market. With money in hand, his next plan was stocking up. In the apocalypse, gold was trash, food was the true gold. Since he was going to be a trader between two worlds, he had to maximize that price difference. The wholesale market was bustling with noise. Chen walked into a large food wholesale outlet. "Boss, I want him sausages." Chen pointed at the red packaging on the shelves. The boss, a bald, middle-aged man, didn't even look up from his cigarette. "How many?" "For retail, go to the supermarket. I sell by the case. I want the Wang Zhongwang brand. The best kind." Chen emphasized the brand. In the apocalypse, this mix of starch and meat would be an unparalleled delicacy, and big brand packaging was sturdy with a long shelf life. 50 cases to start. The boss nearly dropped his cigarette. "How many?" 50 cases. "Kid, are you opening a supermarket?" "Something like that. Planning to set up a small shop in the countryside." Chen made up a casual excuse. "Also 20 cases of compressed biscuits. Military grade, the kind that staves off hunger. And those cheap fruit hard candies give me 50 gene." Sugar in the apocalypse was a strategic resource second only to salt and antibiotics, quick to replenish energy and soothe emotions. "Sure thing. Big customer." The boss' face crinkled with delight, and he immediately called his workers to move the goods. But Chen didn't stop. While the boss prepared the order, he dashed to several pharmacies. To avoid raising suspicion, he made purchases at different locations. Amoxicillin, cephalosporins, ibuprofen, Yunnan Baiyao. These common medicines, costing mere tens of yuan per box in the modern world, could each buy back a life, or even a priceless crystal core, in that medicine-starved wasteland. Especially antibiotics known as white gold, the life-saving drugs. 2 hours later, Chen's rented room was piled high with supplies. Gazing at the mountain of ham sausage boxes and medicines, Chen felt an unprecedented sense of security. Were these just ham sausages? In his eyes, they were gold bars waiting to be cashed in. They were his foundation for survival in the apocalypse, the ladder to power and wealth. Ding! The cooldown for the dual world gate has ended. Detected that the host has completed the first high-value transaction. System energy has been replenished. Storage space unlocked, initial level, 1 cubic meter. The system's voice chimed in at the perfect moment, giving Su Chen a huge surprise. Finally, I have space. Though only 1 cubic meter, it was enough to carry plenty of items. At least he wouldn't have to lug things by hand like last time. Su Chen immediately began organizing his gear. He stripped off his old clothes and changed into a thick denim outfit. Not as good as a bulletproof vest, but at least it could resist bites and scratches. He rolled up thick magazines and wrapped them around his arms and shins, securing them with tape to make makeshift bracers and greaves. In his hand, he gripped a newly purchased cleaver, its blade sharp and gleaming. Finally, he stuffed some ham sausages, compressed biscuits, and medicines into the newly opened system space and slung a bulging hiking backpack over his shoulders. Second transaction began. Su Chen took a deep breath, his gaze resolute, and focused his mind. The faint blue light gate appeared once more. This time he was no longer a desperate gambler with no way out, but a fully armed hunter. He stepped forward. The scene shifted instantly. It was still that gray, deathly silent wasteland street, still that nauseating stench of decay. But this time, as soon as Su Chen landed, his nose caught an intense, unshakable scent of blood, fresher and more pungent than before. Not far from him, in the shadows of a broken wall, a pair of eyes as emerald and fierce as a lone wolf stared fixedly at him, or rather at the bulging hiking backpack on his back, which exuded an enticing aroma of meat. Gulp! From the darkness came the sound of swallowing saliva, followed by the crisp click of a gun bolt being pulled. Drop the pack, get lost or die. A hoarse, icy voice emerged from the shadows. Su Chen tightened his grip on the cleaver, but a faint smile curled at the corner of his mouth. Business had arrived. The voice from the shadows carried a chilling ferocity, yet the weakness and tremor within it were impossible to. Instead of panicking and dropping his backpack as the other had anticipated, Su Chen narrowed his eyes, tightened his grip on the bone cleaver, and lowered his center of gravity, assuming a stance ready to strike at any moment. The first rule of a cross-realm trader: never be fooled by appearances. Come out. Su Chen barked coldly, the bone cleaver glinting in the dim light. Or he'll toss this bag into that radiation pit over there, and no one gets it. It was a psychological game. He was betting that his opponent was already at the end of their rope. The shadows fell into a deathly silence. After a few seconds, accompanied by heavy gasps and the grating sound of metal scraping against the ground, the figure finally gave way, stumbling and collapsing out of the shadows. Clang! A broken alloy battle blade fell onto the rubble-strewn ground. In the dim gray light, Su Chen finally saw the person who had tried to rob him. It was a woman of breathtaking beauty, yet utterly ravaged. She wore a tattered combat suit whose original color was long lost, revealing large patches of skin covered in horrific wounds, some already blackened and festering. Her hair, once a silvery white, was now matted with dried blood and plastered messily against her cheeks. Yet despite her disheveled state, her eyes burned with a startling intensity. They were the eyes of a wounded lioness, filled with wildness, unyielding spirit, and a desperate hunger for. She stared fixedly at the backpack behind Su Chen, a guttural growl escaping her throat as she tried to rise and attack again, but her utterly depleted body only convulsed a few times before crashing heavily back into the dust. Dying. This woman was mere breaths away from death. Su Chen watched her, his taut nerves easing slightly, though he kept his blade raised. He was assessing. In the apocalypse, human life was the cheapest commodity, yet also the most valuable resource. This woman before him, though as weak as an ant now, was no ordinary refugee, judging by her broken alloy blade and the murderous aura that still emanated from her even at death's door. She was a blade, a sharp blade that could kill again with just a little oiling. And Su Chen, rich in supplies, was sorely lacking in martial power. In this perilous wasteland, he was like a child carrying a gold brick through a bustling market, liable to be devoured without a trace. He needed a bodyguard. One who was strong enough and loyal enough. With that thought, the killing intent in Su Chen's eyes faded, replaced by the shrewd calculation of a merchant. Without a word, he slowly crouched down, stopping at a safe distance of 3 meters. Then right before her eyes, he leisurely shrugged off the mountaineering backpack. The sound of the zipper opening rang out sharply in the silent street. Though the dying woman couldn't move, her eyes followed the zipper's track, filled with avarice and longing. Su Chen pulled a red cylindrical object from the bag. It was a King of Kings premium ham sausage he had bought at the wholesale market. In modern society, it was a cheap Taiwan industrial food product, a companion to instant noodles, a byword for junk food packed with starch, preservatives, and various unnamed food additives. But here, a playful smile curled at the corner of Su Chen's mouth. He pinched the metal rings at both ends of the sausage, gave it a twist, and tore off the red plastic casing. With the package opened, a rich, overpowering, meaty scent laden with artificial flavoring exploded into the putrid, foul air. To a modern person, that smell might have been cloying. But to a survivor who had long lived in the wasteland, surviving on moldy breadcrumbs and fighting over tree bark and edible clay, it was the holy breath of paradise. It was the scent of protein, of fat, of life itself. The woman who had been on the verge of death suddenly mustered a flash of strength as if a dying ember had flared up. Her pupils dilated to their maximum, her nostrils flared wildly as she greedily inhaled every trace of the meaty aroma. A gurgling sound of swallowing came from her throat, and copious amounts of saliva uncontrollably mixed with blood dripped from her cracked lips onto the ground. It was the most primal human instinct. In the face of extreme hunger, all dignity, aloofness, and defense, her gaze was locked onto that pink hem sausage as if it were the sole truth of the universe, the deity of her wanted. Su Chen waved the sausage, his tone flat, as if teasing a stray cat. The woman nodded frantically, her movements so violent it seemed she might snap her neck. Her eyes, once full of killing intent, now held only desperation. Give me, she rasped in a broken voice, the plea squeezed out with her last ounce of strength. Su Chen didn't give it to her immediately. Instead, like a devil, he dangled the bait. Work for me, and this is yours. It was a transaction. Extremely unequal, yet absolutely fair. The woman didn't hesitate, didn't he? Faced with survival, she would have signed a contract to sell her soul to the devil without a second thought, let alone a yes. I will. Receiving the affirmative answer, Su Chen nodded with satisfaction. With a flick of his wrist, the enticingly fragrant sausage arced through the air and landed precisely beside the woman's blood-stained hand. The next second, Su Chen witnessed a sight he would never forget. Like a starving wolf protecting its food, the woman lunged, grabbed the sausage from the ground, didn't even bother to brush off the dust, and stuffed it directly into her mouth. She didn't chew, she practically swallowed it whole. With muffled grunts, she wolfed it down, her cheeks bulging and her throat convulsing violently. The sausage, as long as a palm, vanished down her throat in less than 3 seconds. After finishing, she even licked the grease and crumbs from her fingers clean, almost swallowing the small piece of red plastic casing as well. Even as she choked and rolled her eyes, her face bore an expression of extreme, twisted bliss. It was the expression of one who had been redeemed. High in oil, salt, and calories. This industrial product, shunned by modern people, transformed into pure energy, rapidly nourishing her withered, depleted body. After just one sausage, the woman's complexion visibly gained a hint of color, and her previously unfocused eyes regained their clarity. She looked up at Su Chen again. This time her gaze had completely changed. No longer the ferocity of a predator eyeing prey, nor the indifference of a stranger. It was the look one gives to God, to a savior, to the one and only king. In this apocalypse where even a mouthful of clean water could incite murder, who but a god could casually produce such precious, delicious meat? Su Chen felt a bit unnerved by her stare, but he knew the first step was a success. Not done yet, he said, reaching into the bag again. This time he pulled out a 550 milliliters bottle of mineral water and a strip of capsules. He popped out 2 amoxicillin capsules and tossed them over with the water. Drink this. Take the medicine. Your wounds are badly infected. Without treatment, you won't survive the night. If the sausage had shocked her, the antibiotics and pure water now completely shattered her worldview. Medicine. Pure water free of radiation. In this wasteland, antibiotics were called white gold, a single pill enough to trade for a month's worth of rations for an adult. And pure water was a luxury only the high-ranking officials of large shelters could enjoy. And this man had just tossed it to her casually. The woman's hands trembled. She carefully cradled the water bottle as if it were a priceless treasure. She took a small sip first, and the sweet, refreshing taste made her shudder, tears streaming down her face. She quickly swallowed the 2 capsules and clutched the remaining water tightly to her chest, as if it were her very life. Then, struggling, she climbed to her feet. Though her body still wavered, she forced herself to stand straight, using the broken blade as a support, and bowed her proud head before Su Chen. It was a gesture of allegiance. Yi Hongyi, she said, her voice still hoarse, but now carrying a note of resolve and strength. Former 7th Special Operations Unit Federation Assault Specialist. Codename Crimson Rose. From now on, my life is yours. Simple, direct, no superfluous words. Su Chen was overjoyed inside, but maintained an inscrutable, cool expression. Su Chen, he stated his name flatly. Stick with me. As long as you're loyal, there'll be plenty of this kind of food. Hearing plenty, Yi Hongyi's body visibly trembled, and the fervor in her eyes burned even brighter. She didn't need to know who Su Chen was, or where the supplies came from. She only knew that following this man meant survival, and survival with dignity. Now we need to find a... Su Chen glanced around. Dusk was falling and strange sounds began to emanate from the shadows among the ruins. Also, I need something valuable to prove you're worth more than just your appetite. Though he had recruited Yi Hongyi, Su Chen hadn't forgotten his purpose. He was here to get rich, not to do charity. Yi Hongyi took a deep breath, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of a full stomach, the power brought by the sausage. She knew she had to prove her worth immediately, or this mysterious man might abandon her at any moment. In this world, those without value didn't deserve to live. She scanned the surroundings, her gaze as sharp as an eagle's. Suddenly her eyes locked onto the ruins of a half-collapsed building in the distance. It had once been a commercial center, now reduced to a blackened skeletal frame with steel beams jutting into the sky like dead branches. Boss. Yihongi adapted quickly. She raised a finger still smeared with blood, pointing into the depths of the ruins, a hint of manic excitement flickering in her eyes. There, in the underground security center of that building, there's a pre-war prototype, T-800 exoskeleton buried. She paused, turning to look at Su Chen, her tone laced with temptation. It was the Federation's most advanced. It might be damaged, but if you can repair it, even just restore some functions, you could gain the power to tear steel apart with your bare hands. Su Chen's pupils contracted sharply. A T-800 exoskeleton. The power to tear steel. Wasn't this exactly what he needed most right now? With this thing that Wang Tianlong in the real world, who had threatened to cut out his kidneys, would be nothing more than a lamb for slaughter, no matter how many thugs he brought. Su Chen followed Yihongi's gaze. In the depths of those eerie, terrifying ruins, it seemed a steel beast lay sleeping, waiting to be awakened. Lead the way, Su Chen uttered succinctly. Deep within the ruins, a sinister wind howled. Though Yihongi was still recovering from her severe injuries, the ham sausage and antibiotics had clearly worked wonders. Like a nimble specter, she glided silently through the debris and rebar-strewn wasteland, each step precisely avoiding loose stones and shards of glass that might betray her presence. Su Chen followed closely behind. Though his movements were somewhat clumsy under Yihongi's guidance, he miraculously evaded two wandering hordes of zombies. This was the true value of a professional. Su Chen inwardly rejoiced, feeling that the ham sausage had been worth every penny. Without Yihongi, traversing this mere few hundred meters of ruins would have been enough to kill him 10 times over. We're here. Before a subterranean entrance buried under collapsed floor slabs, Yihongi halted. She deftly brushed away the withered vines and rubble covering the entrance, revealing a half-open metal gate. On the gate was a faded Federation military emblem and a stark red warning: military zone. Trespassers will be executed. A stale smell of machine oil mixed with mildew assailed their senses. This was once a secret stronghold, later breached by a zombie tide. Yihongi explained in a low voice, her tone laced with pained recollection. My squad was wiped out. Su Chen asked no further questions, merely patting her shoulder to signal they should proceed. The two slipped through the gate and switched on their tactical flashlights. The beam of light pierced the darkness, illuminating the long-sealed underground space. Everywhere lay bones and shell casings. The walls were scarred with claw marks and bullet holes, telling the harrowing tale of that long-ago battle. Yihongi led Su Chen straight to the deepest security room. There it is. Following her pointing finger, Su Chen's breath caught in his throat. In the corner of the security room, a dried corpse clad in deep black heavy armor sat slumped against the wall. This was no ordinary bulletproof vest, but a full-coverage exoskeleton suit brimming with sci-fi aesthetics and brutal elegance. Though its surface was covered in dust and scratches, with a deep dent on the left shoulder, exposing complex hydraulic lines and circuit boards, it still exuded a suffocating sense of pressure. The cold metallic sheen, the bulky mechanical limbs, the massive power pack on the back, and the iconic shaped infrared visor on the helmet. This was the T-800, the ultimate romance of men. Su Chen felt his heart hammering wildly in his chest, and excitement surpassing even his first discovery of gold. Gold could only buy money, but this could buy life. The driver of this exoskeleton overexerted the power core while covering a retreat, finally dying of exhaustion. Yihongi stepped forward, her gaze complex as she caressed the cold armor. The power core should be depleted and several servo motors are damaged, but the skeletal structure is intact. As long as there's energy, it can move. Energy. Su Chen smiled. As a trader between two worlds, he had no shortage of solutions to such problems. Though he couldn't procure a nuclear battery at the moment, the large-capacity lithium battery packs he'd bought in the modern world, despite their potentially poor endurance, were more than enough for an emergency startup. Help me get it off, Su Chen said impatiently. Yihongi nodded, suppressing her pain, and expertly located the exoskeleton's emergency release buckles. Click, hiss. With a burst of air pressure, the heavy exoskeleton armor slowly opened like a steel embrace awaiting its new master. Su Chen took a deep breath, moved the original corpse aside, pocketing its dog tags as he did, then turned his back to the exoskeleton and slowly embedded himself into that steel shell. Cold. That was the first sensation. Then, as Yihongi fastened the armor piece by piece, a profound sense of being encased in steel, of security, welled up within him. Systems scanned the exoskeleton's status. Su Chen commanded silently. Beep. Detected T-800 type individual exoskeleton damaged version. Integrity 43. Power system offline. Fire control system damaged. Hydraulic assist system operational. Consumed 10 energy points for temporary energy adaptation. Yes. Su Chen didn't hesitate. The next second, a warm current surged from the dual realm gate mark on his chest, flowing through his body and into the exoskeleton circuitry. Buzz. The once dormant mechanical armor suddenly emitted a low hum from its motors like a slumbering beast awakening. The HUD display inside the helmet flickered a few times before glowing with a faint green light. System self-check in progress. Energy access. Bypass power mode. Hydraulic assist system online. Power output limit 60. Though only 60 of its full capacity to an ordinary person like Su Chen, this was the power of a god. He tried raising his right hand. The once heavy mechanical arm now felt weightless, rising with precision. The faint, whirring sound of the mechanical joints turning was more pleasing than the most beautiful music. This is power. Su Chen clenched his fist. The surging sense of strength gave him the illusion that he could punch the earth apart. He turned and looked at a concrete support pillar as thick as a thigh. Huh. Su Chen let out a low growl, pivoting his waist to drive the mechanical arm, and threw a punch. It was a blow with no flair, pure violent mechanical kinetic force. Boom. A thunderous roar echoed through the basement, dust flying. When the dust settled, Yi Hongyi gasped, covering her mouth in shock. There on the hard concrete pillar was a fist imprint several inches deep. Spiderweb-like cracks radiated outward from the center, with large chunks of concrete crumbling away to reveal twisted rebar. If that punch had landed on a person. Su Chen withdrew his fist, staring at the imprint, his lips curling into a wild grin. Awesome. Too awesome. This was true deus ex machina. With this gear, any Wang Tianlong or gangster were nothing but boss. You. Yi Hongyi looked at the man encased in steel, her eyes filled with even deeper awe. She could tell that Su Chen wasn't a trained warrior, but the mysterious means he possessed, providing energy out of nowhere, was more terrifying than any fighter. Well done, Hongyi. Su Chen opened his visor, revealing a satisfied smile. From his personal space, he pulled out another large bag of ham sausages, several bottles of water, and the bone cleaver, placing them all on the ground. These are your reward. I need to leave for a while. Su Chen glanced at the system interface. The countdown to return had only a few minutes left. Guard this place. When I come back next time, I'll bring more food and real medicine to heal your wounds. Yi Hongyi looked at the supplies on the ground and nodded firmly. Don't worry, boss. As long as I'm alive, no one will touch your things. Good. Su Chen closed his visor again. Return. With a thought, the azure light gate reappeared, swallowing the steel-clad figure. Modern era Haiyun City. Inside the rental apartment. The air twisted and a massive steel figure materialized out of thin air, landing heavily on the floor. Crack. The already flimsy floor tiles shattered under the impact. Su Chen quickly activated the exoskeleton's silent mode and carefully moved his limbs. Outside the window, the sky was already bright. Su Chen glanced at the wall clock. Today was the third day, the deadline set by Wang Tianlong. He took off the exoskeleton. Though powerful, it was far too conspicuous. Fortunately, this T-800 was a lightweight reconnaissance model. After removing the bulky power pack and shoulder armor, what remained was like a tight-fitting mechanical skeleton. Su Chen found a loose black trench coat and put it on. The raised collar hid the mechanical neck guard, and the wide hem concealed the hydraulic rods on his legs. Unless someone looked closely, they'd just think he was a burly man in oddly shaped clothes. He walked to the mirror and straightened his collar. The man in the mirror, though still somewhat haggard, no longer held any trace of cowardice in his eyes. In its place was a sharp, icy edge like a blade. Wang Tianlong. Su Chen murmured the name, his fingers gently tracing the cold mechanical arm beneath his coat. At that moment, screech. A harsh screech of brakes came from downstairs, followed by heavy slamming of car doors and chaotic shouting. Su Chen walked to the window and peered through the curtain gap. There it was, the familiar arrogant black Mercedes G-Wagon parked sideways at the entrance of the stairwell. The door opened, and Wang Tianlong, his face full of menace, a thick gold chain around his neck and a cigarette dangling from his lips, jumped out, with 7 or 8 burly men wielding baseball bats and steel pipes. You little brat. 3 days are up. Get the hell down here. Wang Tianlong's roar pierced through the old floorboards, rattling the windows. Su Chen looked down at the group of men like rabid dogs, and a cruel smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. He buttoned up his trench coat one button at a time, hiding the gleaming steel beneath. Since you're so eager to die? Su Chen turned and strode toward the door. He'll grant your wish. With a deafening crash, the weather-beaten security door, unable to withstand the final brutal assault, collapsed in a heap, stirring up a cloud of dust. Wang Tianlong led the charge, swaggering in over the fallen door. 7 or 8 thugs followed in his wake, instantly cramming the tiny rented room to its limits. Smash everything, was Wang Tianlong's first command upon entering, not even sparing Su Chen a glance as he waved his hand. This was his usual tactic. First establish dominance and shatter the debtor's mental defenses, then negotiate terms. It was a method that often yielded twice the results with half the effort. The thugs, receiving their orders, lunged at the room's contents like mad dogs. The already battered tables and chairs were kicked over, the sole television shattered into fragments by a steel pipe, and shards of glass scattered across the floor. Even the few boxes of instant noodles stacked in the corner were maliciously stomped flat, seasoning packets bursting open and creating a filthy mess. Hearing the commotion, neighbors gathered at the doorway, craning their necks. Some faces showed sympathy, others schadenfreude, and still others pointed fingers, whispering among themselves. Oh dear, little Su has landed himself in deep trouble. Wang Tianlong. He's a merciless demon who doesn't spit out bones. This is the end for him. A debt must be paid, it's only right. If you're broke, don't borrow from loan sharks. Amidst all the chaos and noise, Su Chen remained eerily silent. He stood quietly in the shadowy corner of the room, hands in the pockets of his oversized black trench coat, back against the wall, coldly observing the violence unfolding before him. His expression was unnervingly calm, as if it wasn't his home being destroyed, but rather a boring farce. Wang Tianlong, having wreaked havoc and seeing no reaction from Su Chen, found himself somewhat surprised. He spat out his cigarette, but grinding it viciously under his greasy leather shoe, then plopped down onto the only remaining intact sofa, crossing his legs. His fleshy face quivered with the movement. Oh, Master Su, quite the cool customer are we. Wang Tianlong sneered, his eyes fixed on Su Chen with a Catan mouse mockery. What's the matter? Think staying silent will make this go away. He extended a pudgy finger, pointing at the chunky gold watch on his 3 days. The time I gave you is up. Where's the money? Su Chen still said nothing, just stared at him. That look made Wang Tianlong deeply uneasy. In the past, when he came to collect, Su Chen would either beg for mercy on his knees or sob, uncontrollably groveling like a dog. But today there was no fear in the kid's eyes, only a bone-chilling coldness, as if he were looking at a corpse. This anomaly infuriated Wang Tianlong. Damn it, playing mute with me, huh? Wang Tianlong abruptly stood up, striding over to Su Chen. His bulky frame like a wall, pressed in with a nauseating stench of tobacco and sweat. No money, right? Fine. Wang Tianlong grinned savagely, pulling a folding knife from his waist and slapping it against his palm. No money, then you pay with your body. I've already arranged the operating table at a shady clinic in the west of town. Your kidney, all those parts. They won't cover the full 3 million, but they'll wipe out a good chunk of the debt your deadbeat dad left behind. At the mention of his father, a ripple finally stirred in Su Chen's previously calm eyes. It was murderous. Wang Tianlong, oblivious, thought Su Chen was scared. He grew bolder, reaching out to pat Su Chen's face while cursing, speaking of which, you're a real waste, just like your deadbeat dad. If you'd sold the company to me earlier, none of this mess would have happened. But you had to play the high and mighty act, and look where it got you. Wrecked and dead. What did you say? Su Chen suddenly spoke. His voice was very soft, very low, as if squeezed through clenched teeth, carrying a metallic chill. Oh, found your tongue. Wang Tianlong snorted with contempt, his finger nearly poking Su Chen's nose. I said your dad was a waste. And you're a waste too. Hear that clear? Waste. A faint yet distinct whirring sound, the noise of an electric motor starting, suddenly emanated from beneath Su Chen's trench coat. It was the sound of a hydraulic pump pressurizing. Just as Wang Tianlong's finger was about to touch Su Chen's cheek, Su Chen moved. His right hand whipped out of the trench coat pocket at a speed that left a blur in the air. No fancy moves, just a simple, straightforward grapple. A sharp crack rang out. Su Chen's hand clamped onto Wang Tianlong's wrist with pinpoint accuracy. Wang Tianlong froze for a second, instinctively trying to pull his hand back. Let go of me, he roared, yanking with all his might. But in the next second, his expression changed. It didn't budge. Su Chen's hand was like a cast-iron vice welded firmly onto his wrist. No matter how hard Wang Tianlong struggled, even as his face turned red and veins bulged, the other's fingers remained as unyielding as steel, without the slightest slack. What's more, as Su Chen's fingers slowly tightened, a terrifying, indescribable force was transmitted through the skin, acting directly on his bones. A sickening, crackling sound of bone breaking filled the air. A blood-curdling scream from Wang Tianlong echoed through the entire hallway, as shrill as a pig being slaughtered. The excruciating pain forced him to his knees, uncontrollably cold sweat drenching his body. Let go. Let go now. It's breaking. My hand is breaking. Wang Tianlong wailed, tears and snot streaming down his face. He frantically tried to pry Su Chen's fingers away with his other hand, but it felt like trying to bend a hydraulic steel pipe. The surrounding thugs were all dumbfounded. They never imagined that Su Chen, usually so timid he wouldn't even kill a chicken, could subdue the 250-pound Longo with one hand. Get him. What the hell are you all standing around for? Kill him. Wang Tianlong roared hysterically from the pain. The thugs snapped out of it, shouting as they raised their steel pipes and baseball bats, charging at Su Chen. Kid, you're asking for it. A solid steel pipe as thick as an arm whistled through the air, aimed squarely at the back of Su Chen's head. If that blow landed, it would surely shatter his skull. The neighbors at the door screamed in terror, some even covering their eyes, unable to watch. But Su Chen didn't even turn his head. He merely shifted his body slightly, his left hand still in his pocket, his right hand still gripping Wang Tianlong. Then, he raised his left arm to take the hit he'd in. A dull clang of metal striking metal rang out. The pipe powerful enough to crush a skull slammed into Su Chen's left arm beneath the trench coat. But instead of the sound of bone breaking, it was as if it had struck a thick steel plate, jarring the thug's hand numb and nearly causing the pipe to fly out of his grip. Su Chen's form didn't even sway. Beneath the trench coat, a faint black metallic sheen flashed briefly. A dead silence fell over the entire room. The ambushing thug stared wide-eyed at Su Chen as if he were a monster, stammering thighs. How is this possible? Su Chen slowly turned his head, his emotionless eyes scanning the thugs around him before finally settling on Wang Tianlong, who was kneeling on the floor. He slowly bent down, leaning close to Wang Tianlong's face contorted with pain and fear. The motor sound from beneath the trench coat emitted a low hum once more. Su Chen's voice was very soft, yet it pierced into everyone's ears like the whisper of a demon. Who did you just call a waste? And Su Chen's fingers tightened again, and Wang Tianlong's wrist emitted one final brittle snap of surrender. Were you after my kidney? Crack. The bone-chilling sound of snapping bones echoed once more, this time sharper and more thorough than. Wang Tianlong's wrist was bent backward at a grotesque 90-degree angle, with stark, white bone fragments piercing through flesh and blood gushing out instantly. The crimson splattered onto Su Chen's black trench coat, but slid off like raindrops on lotus leaves, leaving no trace behind. My hand. My hand is ruined. Wang Tianlong convulsed in agony, collapsing onto the ground like a heap of mud, his face smeared with a mix of snot, tears, and cold sweat. He tried to struggle, but Su Chen's hand pressed down like an imposing mountain, making it hard even to breathe. Let Brother Long go. The surrounding thugs finally snapped out of their shock. Though this useless Su Chen had suddenly turned eerie, they outnumbered him and were all armed. Kill him. A burly man with a crew cut roared, swinging a baseball bat with a whoosh straight at Su Chen. If the blow landed, it would surely smash a man's head like a watermelon. Su Chen didn't even lift an eyelid. He released Wang Tianlong, stepped forward with his left foot, and the exoskeleton's hydraulic assist system instantly responded. A surge of kinetic energy traveled from his leg muscles to his waist, then through his spine to his right shoulder. A brief hum of an overloading motor sounded beneath the trench coat. Instead of dodging, Su Chen met the baseball bat with a straightforward punch. Bang! Fist and solid wood bat collided fiercely in midair. To everyone's horrified eyes, the hard bat shattered like a brittle cookie. Amid flying splinters, Su Chen's iron fist continued unabated, slamming heavily into the crew-cut thug's chest. The crew-cut thug couldn't even scream. His chest visibly caved in, as if hit by a speeding truck. His feet lifted off the ground as he flew backward. Crash! The thug flew 4 or 5 meters, slammed into the wall, shaking down a layer of lime, then slid down slowly like a painting, unconscious and lifeless. Silence. Dead silence. The other thugs who were about to charge halted, abruptly frozen, as if spellbound, holding their steel pipes and machetes, but daring not to take another step. A punch that shattered a baseball bat. A punch that sent a 200 man flying into the wall. Was this even human strength? Su Chen slowly withdrew his fist, flexing his wrist, as the mechanical joints emitted faint clicks. His cold gaze swept over the remaining men as he uttered a single word: scram. The word was not loud, but to the thugs it thundered like a clap of thunder. Quick! Run! Someone shouted, and the gang of bullies instantly broke into panic, dropping their weapons and scrambling toward the door, desperate not to be the next one plastered on the wall. Wait for me. Take me with you. You bastards. Wang Tianlong wailed in despair on the ground, trying to get up, but unable to due to the searing pain. Su Chen walked over to Wang Tianlong, looking down at him like a dead dog. Su Chen. Grandpa Su. I was wrong. I failed to recognize your greatness. Wang Tianlong, terrified by the cold black combat boots, forgot the pain in his hand and kowtowed frantically. I don't want the money anymore. I don't want the 3 million. Please let me go. Don't want it. A mocking smile curled at the corner of Su Chen's mouth as he grabbed Wang Tianlong by the collar. With one arm, he lifted the 200 Wang Tianlong into the air like a lightweight ragdoll, his feet dangling and kicking, his face turning purple. A debt must be repaid. It's only right. Though I'm poor, I never default on my debts. Su Chen carried Wang Tianlong and strode toward the door. But the interest needs recalculating. With that, he swung his arm and tossed Wang Tianlong out the door like thump, thump, thump. Wang Tianlong tumbled down the stairs with a piercing shriek, bumping and crashing until he reached the first floor. Su Chen straightened his collar and walked downstairs. In the open space below, the fleeing thugs were gathered around the black Mercedes G-Class, trying to start it, only to realize the keys were still with Wang Tianlong. Seeing Su Chen descend slowly, the men scattered like startled birds, keeping their distance. Wang Tianlong, his face bloodied, crawled painfully toward the G-Class. When he saw Su Chen coming down, a flash of venom and madness crossed his eyes as he blustered, Su Chen, stay back. I have a gun in the car. I've got a shotgun. Come any closer and it'll blow you away. He was bluffing. In this strict gun control country, thugs like him at most hit a few blades. The chance of having a gun was negligible. But Su Chen didn't care. Ignoring Wang Tianlong's threats, he walked straight toward the Mercedes G-Class, a symbol of Wang Tianlong's status and wealth. The car, costing nearly 3 million on the road, was Wang Tianlong's pride and the source of his arrogance. Just moments ago, he had driven it to block the entrance, demanding Su Chen pay with his flesh. Su Chen stood before the hood, reaching out to touch the large Mercedes emblem. Cold. Hard. This is your backing. He turned to look at Wang Tianlong, his voice eerily calm. A terrible foreboding seized Wang Tianlong. Su Chen didn't answer. He took a deep breath, bent his knees slightly, and his body tensed beneath the trench coat. The T-800 exoskeleton's power core roared to life, with the hydraulic pump pressure spiking into the red zone. Warning: power output overload. Current output 120. Su Chen ignored the system's warning. He only wanted to vent. To vent the oppression of the past 3 days, the humiliation of his father's death, the fury of being ground into the mud by fate. Break. Now. With a fierce roar, Su Chen leaped high, his right fist descending like a meteor, carrying a world-shattering force, and slammed into the center of the G-Class thick hood. Boom! A deafening explosion like a thunderclap from a clear sky. The entire old residential building seemed to tremble. In everyone's stunned gaze, the rugged off-road vehicle looked as if struck by an invisible giant hammer. The hard hood folded and collapsed instantly. The V8 engine inside shattered under the terrifying kinetic impact, sending parts flying. The front end caved in deeply, both front tires burst outward from the strain, and the windshield shattered into zzz. A harsh electrical buzz sounded as black smoke billowed from the ruined engine bay, with oil and coolant spilling everywhere. One punch. Just one punch. The 3 million luxury car had been reduced to a heap of scrap metal. Absolute silence fell. Even the nosy neighbor auntie in the distance forgot to chew her sunflower seeds, her mouth agape, as if witnessing an alien landing. Wang Tianlong was utterly dumbfounded. He stared blankly at his beloved car in ruins, feeling a warm dampness in his crotch. He had truly wet himself in terror. Was this even human? Was this the Terminator? Su Chen jumped down from the smoking hood, dusting off the cuffs of his trench coat were slightly torn from the violent motion, revealing a section of black metal wrist guard, but obscured by the smoke. No one noticed. He walked over to the paralyzed Wang Tianlong. Wang Tianlong couldn't even beg any more, trembling. Su Chen reached into the inner pocket of his coat. Wang Tianlong thought he was pulling out a knife and shut his eyes, waiting for death. But the expected pain never came. Smack! A heavy, hard object slammed into his face, making his nose bleed. Then came a smack, smack, smack. Wang Tianlong screamed and opened his eyes, only to be dazzled by a golden gleam. It was gold bars. Heavy bars, still bearing a faint, earthy scent. Su Chen took out several little yellow fish and a 500G gold brick he had scavenged from the apocalypse, but not yet cashed in, and hurled them all into Wang Tianlong's face. He'll pay for the car. Su Chen looked down with piercing eyes. There's about 1 kilogram of gold here. At current prices, it's enough to buy your junk car. The rest is for your hand. Take the money, take your men, and get lost. If you ever show up before me again, next time it won't be the car's front that gets smashed. It'll be your head. Wang Tianlong clutched the heavy gold bars in his arms, feeling the stinging pain on his face, utterly bewildered in a surreal daze. Beaten up car, wrecked, and then hit in the face with gold bars. This humiliation was worse than death, but the terror left him too scared to utter a single word. Scram! Su Chen roared again. Wang Tianlong scrambled up as if pardoned, clutching the gold bars tightly, and fled like a whipped dog, with his underlings' help, not daring to look back. Su Chen stood by the wrecked G-Class, watching their panicked retreat, and let out a long, heavy sigh. The neighbors' gazes had changed. No longer sympathy or mockery, but deep reverence, even a hint of fear. Su Chen pulled up his coat collar to cover half his face and turned to head upstairs. He knew that from today on in this old neighborhood, no one would dare look down on the indebted poor boy. But he didn't notice that amid the distant crowd, a phone was quietly raised, recording the entire breathtaking scene. In the VIP reception room of Haiyun City's largest gold store, Su Chen sat on a leather sofa, holding a steaming cup of premium Dahongpo tea with a composed expression. Neatly arranged on the coffee table before him were 20 heavy gold bars, each weighing a full kilogram. He had found them in the ruins of a bank vault during the apocalypse. Though scratched and stained, the gold's captivating luster remained undiminished. The store manager, a middle-aged man in gold-rimmed glasses, sweated profusely as he conducted the final verification with a magnifying glass and touchstone. His hands trembled slightly, not from exhaustion but excitement. Selling 20 kilograms of gold in one go marked a client of unparalleled magnitude. Mr. Su, the verification is complete. Purity exceeds 99. 99, the manager said, his tone reverent. At today's buyback rate of 480 yuan per gram, the total is 9.6 million. Transfer. Su Chen's reply was succinct. 10 minutes later, his phone vibrated with a bank notification. Your account received 96000000 yuan at 1430. Current balance 124500000 yuan. Gazing at the long string of zeros, Su Chen's heart skipped a beat before quickly steadying. Over 10. For his past self, this was an astronomical sum unattainable in a lifetime. But for him now, it was merely the beginning, a trivial starting capital. Stepping out of the gold store, Su Chen inhaled deeply the modern air tinged with exhaust fumes, finding it surprisingly sweet. Debt-free, he felt unburdened. On the way here, he had already transferred funds to clear all his father's legitimate debts, principal and interest. As for Wang Tianlong, the gold bars thrown in his face more than settled the score. Now it's time for business. Su Chen hailed a taxi and headed to the outskirts. The shabby rental was it was too crowded, too noisy, and today's commotion would surely attract attention. He needed a more private, spacious place, a perfect hub between two worlds. 2 hours later, in the western outskirts of Haiyun City, Su Chen stood before a large standalone warehouse in an abandoned industrial zone, nodding in satisfaction. Originally a logistics transit depot, it spanned over 2,000 square meters, surrounded by high walls and isolated for miles. Most importantly, it had a massive underground cold storage, its cooling system broken but ideal as a hidden supply cache. The landlord, a balding man in urgent need of cash, signed the contract quickly upon receiving prompt payment, pocketing a year's rent and leaving cheerfully. Su Chen closed the heavy iron door, turning the space into his private domain. He entered the empty warehouse, pulled up a worn chair, and began reviewing the past 2 days. Gold is lucrative, but too risky. Su Chen rubbed his chin, a contemplative gleam in his eyes. The store hadn't questioned his 20-kilogram sale, but their probing glances were unmistakable. What if he brought out 100 kilograms or a ton next time? The state would investigate. Once targeted head-face dissection or a life sentence without a plausible explanation. A trader's beginner stage is resource arbitrage. The advanced stage must be technology and civilization brokerage. Su Chen's thoughts crystallized instantly. What held the most value in the apocalypse? Not gold or jewels, but the black tech slumbering in the room. Even a battery 10 years ahead of its time, a cure for cancer, or a rudimentary AI code could unleash a storm in modern society, yielding wealth and status billions times greater than gold. Moreover, technology could be polished into independent RD, far safer than gold of dubious origin. I'm done being a gold dealer. Su Chen stood, his gaze resolute. He'll become the tech godfather of two worlds, the apocalypse's savior. To acquire technology in the apocalypse, scavenging wouldn't suffice. That world teemed with zombies, mutated beasts, and extreme factions. He needed to build his own base, form armed forces, and even rule the wasteland. Only as the apocalypse's overlord could he continuously transport its civilization's legacy back. System open procurement list. Su Chen pulled out his phone and began furiously typing. With money, he wouldn't scrimp on expired bread anymore. Generator. A high-power diesel set. No electricity in the apocalypse means nothing. Solar panels as backup energy. Fuel. Order 10 tons of diesel and 5 tons of gasoline first. Drones. 10 top-tier civilian DJI models for reconnaissance. Walkie-talkies, night vision goggles, stab-proof vests, and trenching tools. Su Chen's fingers flew across the screen. Beyond equipment, food and medicine were vital. Compressed biscuits, can luncheon meat, self-heating meals. By the ton. Antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, painkillers, bandages, alcohol. Clear out nearby pharmacies. Su Chen smiled at the dense list. These items were mundane in the modern world, purchasable with money. But in the apocalypse, they were life itself. Hard currency more precious than gold. Over the next 2 days, Su Chen transformed into a frenzied shopper. Trucks laden with supplies rolled into the remote warehouse, unloaded, and departed. By the third evening, the once empty space was packed to the brim. On the left, mountains of food boxes, on the right, machinery and fuel drums. In the center, rows of brand new outdoor survival gear. Standing amid the supplies like a general reviewing his troops, Su Chen glanced at the clock. 72 hours had passed since his last return. The portal's cooldown had ended. Almost time. Su Chen walked to an empty spot in the center of the warehouse. He had donned a top-tier tactical outdoor suit, explosion-proof combat boots, a multifunctional belt, and a massive hiking backpack. Though he hadn't worn the conspicuous T-800 exoskeleton, saving energy by keeping it in his dimensional space, his aura was now entirely transformed. It was the confidence forged by wealth and ambition. System, open the portal. Su Chen commanded silently. With a hum, the familiar azure light gate materialized in the air, its swirling vortex resembling an entrance to hell, exuding a bone-chilling cold. But this time Su Chen felt no fear. He gazed at the warehouse, full of supplies, flames burning in his eyes. Yihong, you wait for me. This time he'll make that wasteland know who the true god is. Su Chen waved his hand, his will enveloping a vast expanse of supplies. Absorb. In an instant, tons of supplies vanished into the system's storage space. The next second, Su Chen stepped into the light gate. The gray, despairing, yet infinitely promising world. I, Su Chen, have returned. In the wasteland at Ruin No. 73. An underground shelter. The air was thick with a musty, decaying scent, occasionally punctuated by the grating roars of zombies echoing from afar. Yi Hongyi sat slumped against the cold, damp wall, clutching a chipped dagger tightly to her chest. Her face was as pale as paper, her lips cracked and parched. Though the wound on her abdomen had been hastily bandaged, it still throbbed with pain due to the lack of medicine and nourishment, the oozing blood staining her tattered combat jacket. 3 days. It had been 3 full days since that mysterious man had left. During those days, she had not had a drop of water, dared not sleep, and remained vigilant to every sound, guarding the pile of supplies Su Chen had left behind. Several times, wandering scavengers had discovered this place and tried to break in for the food. Yi Hongyi wasted no words. Despite the searing pain from her wound, she slit the throats of 3 men with that dagger, enough to deter the other onlookers. But she had reached her limit. Her vision was blurring, her body growing cold, her consciousness fading. Would he? A flicker of despair crept into Yi Hongyi's heart. In this apocalypse where betrayal was as common as drinking water, promises were the cheapest currency. Perhaps that man had only seen her as a temporary watchdog to be discarded after use. After all, who would return to this hell for a dying nobody? Just as Yi Hongyi's eyelids grew heavy and she was about to sink into darkness, a familiar, ethereal blue light suddenly illuminated the cramped basement. Yi Hongyi's eyes snapped open, a startling brilliance flaring in her once dull gaze. The light faded and a tall figure materialized before her. Brand new tactical gear, a clean and composed face, and that massive bulging backpack. He was like an angel descending into the darkness, no, a god of wealth. Boss. Yi Hongyi tried to rise, but her weakened body refused to obey, and she collapsed heavily as soon as she moved. A warm, powerful hand reached out in time to steady her. Don't move. Su Chen's voice was gentle yet firm. I'm back. Those simple words instantly released the tension in Yi Hongyi's nerves. Her eyes reddened, and she nearly broke into tears. Su Chen looked at the frail woman in his arms, his brow furrowing slightly. She looked even more haggard than when he had left, the scent of blood on her heavier, clearly having endured fierce battles. But he glanced at the supplies piled in the corner, a bag of sausages and a few bottles of water, untouched. Even when starving to the point of collapse, she had not touched a single item of the boss. A warmth surged in Su Chen's heart, and he felt even more assured of his judgment. In this cannibalistic world, loyalty was priceless. Have some water first. Su Chen unscrewed a bottle of sports drink and held it to Yi Hongyi's lips. Yi Hongyi drank greedily, the sweet liquid flowing down her throat like a fountain of life, revitalizing her depleted body. Bear with me. Ooh, I need to treat your wound. Su Chen took a first aid kit from his backpack and opened it. Iodine hydrogen peroxide, Yunnan Baiyao medical gauze, and 2 boxes of cephalosporin. When these items, things that could be bought for a few dozen yuan in a modern pharmacy, were laid before Yi Hongyi, she stopped breathing. These are all medicine. Yi Hongyi's eyes widened in disbelief at the beautifully packaged boxes. In the apocalypse, a single expired antibiotic could trade for a human life, and here were 2 whole boxes. No more talking. Su Chen tore away the blackened strip of cloth from Yi Hongyi's abdomen, revealing a gruesome wound. Cleaning, disinfecting, applying medicine, bandaging. Though Su Chen's technique was clumsy and unprofessional, causing Yi Hongyi to gasp in pain, she bit her lip and remained silent, staring only at Su Chen's focused profile. That feeling of being cared for, of being valued, made her heart, long frozen in the apocalypse, begin to beat fiercely. After dressing the wound, Su Chen took out a can of braised beef and pulled the tab. The rich aroma of meat instantly filled the entire basement. Eat up, it's all yours. Yi Hongyi could no longer hold back. She grabbed the can and wolfed it down, even licking the juice clean. Nourished by medicine and high-calorie food, within just an hour, Yi Hongyi's complexion visibly regained its. The powerful physique of an evolver began to take effect, a tingling sensation of healing spreading from the wound. Go put this on. Su Chen tossed her a set of black, form-fitting tactical camouflage and a pair of high-top combat boots. He had specially purchased these top-tier items from the modern world according to Yi Hongyi's measurements. Heat-resistant, breathable, and durable. Yi Hongyi took the clothes and shyly retreated to a corner. Moments later, when she stepped out again, Su Chen's eyes lit up. The dirty beggar woman was gone. In her place stood a valiant female warrior. The form-fitting tactical suit perfectly accentuated her tall, slender figure, her curve breathtakingly dramatic. Her long hair was tied into a high ponytail, revealing her slender neck and exquisite, coldly beautiful features. With combat boots on her feet and a sharp glint in her eyes, she exuded a lethal charm of wildness and danger. Boss, thank you. Yi Hongyi walked up to Su Chen, knelt on one knee, and lowered her proud head. From today, Yi Hongyi's life is yours. This was not a transaction, it was a vow. Su Chen reached out and helped her up, smiling. What would I do with your life? I want you to help me conquer this world. Oh boss. Yi Hongyi seemed to recall something. She stepped back, took a deep breath, and fixed her gaze on the chipped dagger on the ground. To repay you, I want to show you something. Su Chen was puzzled. What? The next second, a shocking scene unfolded. The dagger on the ground began to tremble slightly, without any external contact. Rise. Yi Hongyi commanded in a low voice, fine beads of sweat forming on her forehead. The dagger actually wobbled into the air. Though it only rose half a meter and flew erratically like a drunken butterfly, it was undeniably telekinesis. Clang. The dagger flew 3 meters before crashing heavily to the ground. Yi Hongyi swayed, clearly exhausted. This is an evolver. Yes, boss. Yi Hongyi explained, panting. Sometimes hovering at the brink of life and death can break the genetic. After recovering from this severe injury, I discovered I could control light metal objects. It's still very weak, but with enough food and training it'll grow stronger. Jackpot. Su Chen was ecstatic. He had thought he was just picking up a bodyguard, but instead he had found an Esper with limitless potential. Metal control. If maxed out, wouldn't that be Magneto? Good. Very good. Su Chen patted Yi Hongyi's shoulder, his eyes full of admiration. With me you'll become stronger than anyone. Yi Hongyi felt her boss joy, and a faint, beautiful smile curved at the corners of her mouth. She clenched her fist, sensing the power surging within her, and looked at Su Chen with fervent battle spirit. Boss, my wound is fine now. Yi Hongyi turned and pointed toward a direction deep in the ruins, a dangerous glint flashing in her eyes. About 2 kilometers away, there's an abandoned commercial street. I scouted it before. There's a large jewelry store there. Though dozens of zombies are lingering at the entrance, I'm confident I can fight my way in now. She turned back to Su Chen like a blade eager to be unsheathed. Do you want to go stock up? The sky above the wasteland always presents a sickly shade of grayish-yellow, with heavy layers of radioactive clouds obscuring the sunlight, enveloping the entire world in a suffocating gloom. Ruin City No. 73A, edge of the commercial district. This area used to be one of the most prosperous parts of the city, with skyscrapers standing in rows, and although the enormous billboards are now rusty and on the verge of collapse, traces of their former luxury can still be discerned. The street is littered with abandoned vehicles, some reduced to charred skeletons, while others are completely engulfed by creeping vines, as if nature is reclaiming the remnants of human civilization. 2 figures are stealthily moving along the wall, traversing through the deep silence. Boss, ahead is that brilliant jewelry store. Yi Hongyi lowered her voice, her movements as silent as a nimble black cat. She pointed to a shop 100 meters ahead, where the large glass door was shattered, but the roller shutter was only pulled down halfway, and inside the counters glimmered enticingly in the dim light. Su Chen nodded and adjusted his T-800 exoskeleton. Although this exoskeleton was merely a modified civilian-grade equipment, it provided him with immense reassurance in such an environment. The hydraulic assist system allowed him to walk steadily with every step, and the alloy blade on his back exuded a sense of intimidation. Move quickly, grab what we can, and go. Su Chen said in a deep voice, our target is small in size, but high in value. Gold is too heavy. This time we prioritize diamonds and colored gemstones. Understood. The 2 of them ghosted to the entrance of the jewelry store. However, just as Su Chen bent down to slip under the roller shutter, an unexpected incident occurred. Crack! A sharp sound of shattering echoed through the silent street as a piece of pavement suddenly collapsed beneath Su Chen's feet, triggering some old mechanical security device. Although the power had long been cut off, this purely mechanical alarm continued to function stubbornly. Dingling! The piercing sound of the bell exploded, instantly echoing through the desolate ruins like rolling thunder reaching several blocks away. Su Chen's expression changed. Damn it. Roar. Ugh. Almost at the same second the bell rang, the previously silent ruins erupted into chaos. In the shadows flanking the street, behind abandoned vehicles and underneath the manhole covers, countless crimson eyes suddenly lit up, gazing with a greedy hunger for the flesh of the living. The heavy footsteps, growls, and the sound of nails scraping the ground converged into a nerve-wracking symphony. Boss, 20 are coming from the left. There are over 10 on the right too. Yi Hongyi's voice was urgent, but not panicked. Instead, it carried a bloodthirsty excitement. The dagger in her hand was already reversed in her grip, her body tensed like a drawn bow. Into the store? Use the terrain to defend. Su Chen decisively pulled up the roller shutter and charged into the jewelry store. Yi Hongyi followed closely, pulling the roller shutter down halfway, leaving a gap of half a meter, just enough to block the zombies' approach. Bang! 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 Just as they steadied themselves, the first wave of zombies slammed against the rotting faces, pressed against the gap in the door, grayish-white arms frantically clawing inside, trying to seize the living flesh right before them. Come at me! Su Chen shouted fiercely, showing no signs of retreat. He stood right in front of the gap, the exoskeleton's power fully engaged, swinging the alloy blade, with a whistling sound fiercely chopping at the arms and heads that reached in. Black blood splattered. Su Chen stood like an iron fortress, firmly blocking the breach. The exoskeleton granted him strength far beyond that of an ordinary person, each strike easily severing bones. Zombies attempting to force their way in either had their arms severed or were directly cleaved in half. But this was just the beginning. More and more zombies were drawn in by the noise. The roller shutter creaked under the strain, as if it could be breached by the horde at any moment. "Boss, there are side doors and windows," Yi Hongyi shouted. "You take care of the windows. I'll hold the front door." Su Chen yelled back, without looking, already blinded by rage. This brutal, bloody combat made his adrenaline surge wildly. This was not just a fight, it was a catharsis against this damned apocalypse. "Understood." Yi Hongyi flashed and instantly vanished from her spot. The next moment she appeared in front of a floor-to-ceiling window on the side of the shop. That window had already been cracked by several agile zombies. Crash! The glass shattered, and 3 zombies shrieked as they lunged inside. Yi Hongyi did not retreat, instead she charged forward. She slid across the ground littered with broken glass, twisting her body at an impossible angle to evade the zombies' claws filled with toxic decay. A cold gleam flashed. The serrated dagger in her hand seemed to come alive, accurately slicing through the neck of the first zombie, severing its central nervous system. Then, using the momentum to spin around, she kicked the second zombie in the knee, the sound of shattering bone echoing as the dagger pierced into the eye socket of the third zombie. Fast, precise, ruthless. This was the fighting style of an evolved being. If Su Chen was a heavy-duty tank relying on his gear to withstand, then Yi Hongyi was the deadly assassin dancing on the blade's edge. The battle lasted a full 10 minutes. A small mountain of corpses had piled up at the entrance of the jewelry store, blackish blood flowing everywhere, giving off a nauseating stench. Su Chen felt his arms becoming sore and numb. Even with the exoskeleton assisting him, the high-intensity slashing was still a tremendous test of endurance. Last wave. Su Chen looked at the thinning horde of zombies outside the gap, took a deep breath, and kicked the roller shutter, sending several bodies that were stuck flying out. Die! He wielded his knife with both hands, slashing down to behead the last few zombies trying to crawl in. Finally, the surroundings quieted down. Only the heavy breathing of the two remained, along with the occasional distant growl of zombies. Who? Su Chen leaned on his knife, gasping heavily, sweat trickling down his cheeks and dripping onto the blood-soaked floor. "Boss, are you okay?" Yi Hongyi quickly walked over, her body also splattered with black blood, but her eyes shone brightly, reflecting the exhilaration after battle. "I'm fine." Exhilarating. Su Chen grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. This was the apocalypse. Only by experiencing such life-and-death struggles could one truly feel the essence of being alive. Moreover, this battle deepened his understanding of the T-800 exoskeleton's performance, which was fundamental for his survival in this apocalypse. "Boss, look at this." Yi Hongyi crouched down skillfully, using her dagger to slice open the back of a mutated zombie's head, extracting a crystal the size of a fingernail. The crystal was grayish-white, emitting a faint glow under the dim light, looking both mysterious and eerie. "Is this the crystal core?" Su Chen's eyes lit up. He had seen this thing countless times in post-apocalyptic novels, but it was his first time encountering it in reality. Su Chen reached out to take the crystal core. It was cold and hard. Just as his fingertips touched the crystal core, a cold mechanical voice suddenly echoed in his mind, detecting low-level energy source. "Would you like to absorb it?" Su Chen's heart stirred. Absorb. The crystal core in his hand instantly transformed into a stream of light, seeping into his palm and vanishing. Immediately, a warm current surged along his arm to his entire body, finally converging at the center of his brow. Energy absorption complete. System space upgrading. Upgrade complete. Current space volume 2 cubic meters. Su Chen focused his thoughts and sensed his portable space. Indeed, the space originally just 1 cubic meter had doubled. Although 2 cubic meters doesn't seem large, it represents an absolute safe zone carried on his person. Being able to store twice the supplies means doubling the profit, doubling the survival gear. Good stuff. Su Chen was overjoyed. Hongyi, check every zombie's head, don't let a single one slip by. After clearing the battlefield, the two finally turned their attention to the counters behind them. Though decades of erosion had taken their toll, the diamonds and rubies still embedded in the rings and necklaces sparkled with a mesmerizing brilliance. "Get to work," Su Chen commanded, and the two transformed into the greediest of robbers. No selection was needed, no authentication required. Su Chen directly picked up the prepared large canvas bag, smashed the counter glass with the knife handle, and swept the jewels along with the trays into the bag. Clatter. This sound was simply the most beautiful melody in the world. A 1-carat diamond ring. Take it. A pigeon-egg-sized ruby necklace. Take it. An imperial green jade bracelet. Take it all. In just 10 minutes, the entire jewelry store was ransacked, and Su Chen's backpack was loaded with over 10 pounds of various jewelry. Although these items were worthless in the apocalypse, even less than a pack of instant noodles in modern society, they represented billions in wealth. This was the fuel for the rise of Shanghai technology. Withdraw. Su Chen shouldered the heavy backpack, feeling his steps lighten a few notches. The two cautiously exited through the back door, avoiding a potential second wave of zombies attracted by the scent of blood. Just as they were about to leave the commercial district, Yi Hongyi suddenly halted and grabbed Su Chen's arm. "Boss, wait. What is it?" Su Chen raised his knife warily. Yi Hongyi said nothing, but raised her hand, pointing to a building located partway up the mountain. It was a vast and luxurious mansion. Though half of its main structure had collapsed, it still exuded a sense of former grandeur in the glow of the setting sun. Most striking was the large rusty iron gate of the mansion, where a special metal emblem could be faintly seen, a shield encircled by atomic orbital rings. "Over there." Yi Hongyi's voice trembled with awe. "That's the symbol of the pre-war wealthy district. Earlier amidst the battle, I caught a glimpse of a red light flashing from the entrance of the basement over there. There is an underground shelter, perhaps containing pre-war technology that interests you. The affluent district." In any era, these three words represented privilege, resources, and safety. Su Chen followed the direction Yi Hongyi pointed. The hillside manor stood isolated in the twilight, like a slumbering beast. The unique shield emblem emitted a faint metallic creak in the wind, as if narrating the glories of a bygone era. "Are you saying there might be survivors there?" Su Chen squinted, tightening his grip on the blade. "No, it doesn't seem like it." Yi Hongyi shook her head, her sharp hawk-like eyes fixed on the manor. "If there were survivors, there'd be defensive works or garbage around. But it's too clean as a tomb. That red light. It's more like a warning signal from a backup power source about to die." Backup power. Those two words struck a chord in Su Chen's mind. In the apocalypse, electricity meant civilization, order, and the possibility that sophisticated high-tech equipment might still be operational. "Let's go check it out." Su Chen didn't hesitate. His spatial storage had been upgraded to 2 cubic meters, and his backpack was stuffed with jewels, a fruitful haul. But he was not just a trader, he was an ambitious man. Jewels could only be exchanged for money, but what lay in that shelter might hold the power to change the world. Under the cover of night, the two cautiously made their way up the hillside. The density of zombies here was indeed much lower than down below. After all, in the early days of the outbreak, the affluent district's security measures and population density were far superior to the commercial areas. Arriving at the manor gate, Su Chen realized its luxury exceeded his imagination. The ornate iron gate alone stood 5 meters tall, rusted shut, but still bearing the grandeur of its prime. They didn't enter through the main gate, but slipped in through a collapsed gap in the wall. Crossing the overgrown garden, they approached what seemed to be a garage. "It's here." Yi Hongyi pointed at a patch of ground in the corner. That red light was coming from beneath this. Su Chen walked over and brushed aside thick layers of leaves and dirt. True enough, a metal manhole-sized observation window was revealed with a faint red breathing light flickering inside. Beside the window was a hydraulic door disguised as a drainage ditch. "This is a military-grade private shelter," Su Chen said, touching the cold metal panel, a flicker of fervor in his eyes. "Blast-proof, radiation-proof, with a self-contained circulation system. It's the perfect luxury mansion for the apocalypse." But the question was how to get in. The electronic lock panel had gone dark from lack of power, and the mechanical emergency keyhole had rusted into a solid mass. "Boss, should I try crawling in through the vent?" Yi Hongyi suggested. "No need for that." Su Chen stepped back, flexing his neck as the T-800 exoskeleton hummed softly. "We have the key." The key he referred to was brute force. Su Chen approached the door gap, wedged his alloy combat blade into the crack as a lever gripped the handle with both hands, and planted his feet firmly on the ground. Exoskeleton full power. Overdrive mode. The motor whirred violently, emitting a piercing screech. Su Chen's muscles tensed as the indicator lights on the hydraulic arms turned an intense red. "Open." With a grating, teeth-clenching sound of metal twisting, the 20-centimeter-thick blast door was pried open, creating a gap. With a snap, the internal lock bolt snapped under tons of brute force. With a rumble, the heavy door was slowly pushed open, releasing a wave of stale air. Though unpleasant with the smell of mildew and machine oil, it lacked the nauseating stench of corpses from outside. This meant the air circulation system had been working for a long time. It was a sealed, clean space. In. Su Chen switched on his tactical flashlight, a beam of light piercing the basement's darkness. The two entered cautiously, one after the other. It was a downward-sloping passage ending at another airtight door which was unlocked and slightly ajar. Pushing it open, the sight before them stunned both. This was no mere shelter, it was a small underground palace. A hall of about 200 square meters, carpeted with thick rugs though moldy, adorned with paintings of uncertain authenticity, leather sofas, a mahogany wine cabinet, and even a small home theater. But in the center of the hall lay 2 desiccated corpses. A man and a woman dressed in decent pajamas lying in each other's arms. On the coffee table before them sat an empty sleeping pill bottle and a half-drunk bottle of red wine. No struggle, no blood. Clearly the original owners had chosen a dignified end when the apocalypse first erupted, or perhaps when hope ran out. This is the apocalypse, Su Chen sighed, stepping forward to briefly inspect the bodies. Dead for at least a decade, completely mummified. He felt little sorrow. In this world, the dead were the most common sight. Hongi, bury them outside. Since we're taking their place, we should give them peace. Yes, Yi Hongi replied without a word, hoisting the two light, desiccated bodies and walking out. While Yi Hongi disposed of the bodies, Su Chen began inspecting the shelter's hardware. Water circulation system. Filter is still usable, but the tank is empty. Ventilation system. Fan bearings are a bit stuck, should work with some oil. Generator. Su Chen entered the equipment room and saw a massive diesel generator set. The fuel tank had long run dry. No wonder they killed themselves. Su Chen shook his head. In this cage, without electricity, water, or light, despair is worse than death. But for him, these were no problems. With a thought, Su Chen retrieved a small Honda silent generator and 2 barrels of diesel from his system space. Though the small generator couldn't power the entire shelter, it was more than enough for lighting and critical equipment. He skillfully refueled connected wires and pulled the starter cord. A low puttering sound echoed in the silent basement, and then the indicator lights on the electrical distribution panel in the equipment room lit up. Su Chen took a deep breath and flipped the main switch. In the next second, long-lost light descended. The ceiling lights in the hall flickered twice before emitting a soft, bright, white glow. Light. In this pitch-black apocalypse of blood and slaughter, this radiance represented absolute safety and the warmth of civilization. Yi Hongi, who had just returned from disposing of the bodies, stood at the entrance, gazing at the room bathed in light. Her eyes, accustomed to darkness and vigilance, glistened with a thin layer of moisture. How many years had it been since the black fog descended and the city fell? She had never seen such steady, warm, artificial light. Every night was spent in fear and cold, trembling in dark corners like a rat. Yet now in this man's hands, light had returned. Boss, Yi Hongi murmured, looking at Su Chen standing under the light, her eyes brimming with admiration. If before she was loyal for food, now she seemed to see hope. Stop daydreaming, Su Chen said, dusting off his hands in high spirits. Go wash your face. There's a private bathroom, though no water, but I brought bottled water. Yes. Yi Hongi nodded vigorously, a genuine long-missed smile spreading across her face. Just then, Su Chen's attention was caught by a reflection in the corner of the hall. There was a translucent glass door behind which stood several black server racks emitting faint green lights, standby indicators that had auto-start after the power came on. Servers. Su Chen walked over and pushed open the glass door. On the racks was a silver logo, a soaring dragon encircling an atomic nucleus. Yi Hongi, who had just finished washing her face, saw the emblem and gasped. Tianqing technology. Su Chen turned around. You know it. Of course. Yi Hongi hurried over, her voice excited. The pre-war energy giant, the company that claimed to hold the key to infinite energy. It was said that before the apocalypse, they were conducting a top-secret Prometheus project to solve humanity's energy crisis. I never thought. The owner of this shelter was a high-ranking member of Tianqing Technology. She pointed at the flickering racks, her voice trembling. Boss, inside here, there might be something incredible. Something 10,000 times more valuable than gold or diamonds. Inside the server room, the faint hum of the cooling fan sounded like divine music to Su Chen's ears. Although he wasn't a top hacker, he still possessed basic computer skills. The owner of the shelter clearly did not expect anyone to brute force the door and restore power, so the server was not equipped with a physical self-destruction program. Su Chen rummaged through the desk drawer in the hall and indeed found the administrator password in a yellow diary. It was his daughter's birthday. With the password entered, the terminal screen connected to the server lit up. Countless data streams cascaded like a waterfall, finally settling onto a simple desktop. There were not many folders, most of them containing family photos and some trivial diaries. Su Chen directly opened the encrypted folder named Project Prometheus. Entering the password again, a series of PDF documents and CAD drawings appeared before him. High-energy graphene solid-state battery experimental data 73rd iteration. Mass production process flowchart V4. 0-inch cost control and raw material substitution plan. Su Chen opened the first document. Although the screen was filled with technical jargon that made his head spin, a few key parameters in the abstract made even this layman feel breathless and his heart race. Energy density 3500 Wh/kg, cycle life 20,000 times, charging rate 10C, fully charged in 6 minutes, safety performance, puncture gunshot, high temperature, non-flammable, and non-explosive. Su Chen gasped, sharply feeling a tingling sensation in his scalp. He was knowledgeable in this area. In modern society, the highest energy density of lithium batteries was around 300 Wh/kg, and charging often took an hour. Yet this item before him had an energy density over 10 times that of modern batteries. The charging speed was 10 times faster. Its lifespan was countless times longer. What was this? It was clearly a nuclear bomb in the field of energy. If he could bring this back to the modern world, Su Chen closed his eyes and a series of images flashed through his mind. Tesla's stock price plummeting, oil tycoons in the Middle East weeping, the entire world's cars, phones, drones, and even military equipment undergoing a revolutionary transformation because of this technology. And he who mastered this technology would become the energy mogul of the new era where wealth would no longer be mere numbers, but a scepter capable of altering the world landscape. This is the true treasure. Su Chen murmured, his gaze at the screen more fervent than when he had looked at a bag of diamonds. Compared to this, that bag of diamonds is nothing but trash, mere glass beads. Gold has a price, but technology is priceless. Gold could only make him a wealthy man, while this technology could make him a true oligarch. Boss, is this thing really that powerful? Yi Hongyi, though not technically inclined, could guess a bit from Su Chen's fervent expression. Powerful. It could buy half the world. Su Chen took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. He quickly took out a large-capacity external hard drive from the system space and plugged it into the terminal. Copy. Copy everything. The progress bar began to move slowly. Su Chen fixed his gaze on the screen, fearing a power outage or system crash at this crucial moment. 10 minutes later. Copy completed. Su Chen unplugged the hard drive, carefully stowing it close, placing it in the innermost pocket of his bulletproof vest. This hard drive was now worth more than his life. After completing all this, Su Chen turned to Yi Hongyi. The next plan was clear: a division of labor between the two worlds. He would be responsible for assembly, sales, capital operations, and dealing with various forces greed in the modern world. Meanwhile, this side of the apocalypse would be his stronghold, responsible for providing technology and raw materials, as well as serving as a final retreat. This shelter must be defended. Hongyi, Su Chen's expression became serious. I'm here. Yi Hongyi immediately straightened up. Su Chen waved his hand and released a large amount of supplies from the space. Boxes of compressed biscuits, canned luncheon meat, and barrels of water instantly filled half the hall. These provisions would be enough for an adult to eat for a full 2 months. He then took out an exaggerated modern compound bow and 3 sets of carbon arrows. This bow is for you. I know you prefer cold weapons. This one has great power, is silent, and is suitable for assassinations with a much longer range than your flying knives. Yi Hongyi looked at the exquisite compound bow, a hint of affection flashing in her eyes as she reached out to take it and tried to draw the string. Twang! The bowstring vibrated, producing a pleasant sound. Good bow, she exclaimed. These foods and weapons are all. Su Chen looked into her eyes and said solemnly, I need to leave for a while to handle some matters in my world. Your only task is, Su Chen pointed to the ground beneath them, to hold this place, defend this shelter, protect this server. Anyone who approaches except for me will be killed without mercy. Yi Hongyi was taken aback. She looked at the food scattered all over the ground, then at the bow in her hands, and finally at Su Chen. In this apocalypse, no one would leave so many survival supplies for others unless it was a life-and-death friendship or absolute trust. Suddenly, she knelt on one knee, her right fist pressed against her heart, her voice firm and resolute, carrying a sense of deadly determination. Boss, don't worry. Unless I die, no one can step through this door, even half a step. Not even a tide of corpses, not even a tyrant to get in. They must first step over my dead body. Don't talk about death so lightly. Su Chen reached out to help her up, adjusting her slightly disheveled collar. I want you to stay alive. When I come back next time, I will bring you better equipment and even make you stronger. With that, Su Chen no longer. He took one last look at this hope-filled shelter and with a thought said, System return. Buzz. A deep blue teleportation portal appeared out of nowhere, its swirling vortex emitting waves of time and space. Su Chen stepped into it, carrying a backpack full of jewels and the invaluable hard drive. The light and shadows twisted and the world inverted. In the modern world, Haiyun City. Inside the remote, abandoned warehouse. The air was filled with a faint smell of dust, devoid of the decaying stench of the apocalypse, and without the sense of imminent death. Su Chen's figure appeared out of thin air. He staggered slightly, leaning against a nearby shelf to steady himself. He was back. Looking at the clutter piled up in the warehouse and hearing the faint sounds of car horns in the distance, Su Chen felt as if he had returned from a different world. But he had no time to lament. He touched the hard drive against his chest, a smirk of ambition curving his lips. With this, Shanghai technology would no longer be an empty shell of a company. Su Chen took out his phone, and countless missed calls and messages popped up, most of them being bank collection notices along with the threatening messages from Wang Tianlong's subordinates that he had already dealt with. He ignored these spam messages and scrolled to a contact labeled Old Jean. Old Jean, an intermediary in the underground black market of Haiyun City, had wild connections and a tight-lipped demeanor. As long as the price was right, he could procure anything and was willing to take any risk. Su Chen dialed the number. Hello? Who's this? A hoarse voice came through the line, accompanied by the distant sound of clattering mahjong tiles. It's me, Su Chen. Oh, Su, my younger brother. Old Jean's tone immediately became warmer, but laced with a hint of insincerity. I heard you struck it rich recently. Even Wang Tianlong has taken a fall at your hands. Clearly the incident of smashing the car had spread through the underworld. Cut the small talk. Su Chen's voice was cold. I have a big deal for you. Oh, how big? A batch of diamonds, top quality, no certificates. Su Chen looked at the sparkling stones in his backpack and said flatly. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, followed by the sound of mahjong tiles being pushed aside. Same place as usual. Old Jean's voice became serious. Su, it seems you really are planning something big. Buzz. After hanging up the phone, Su Chen gazed out at the bustling cityscape, the neon lights flickering and the traffic flowing. Beneath this peaceful facade, a commercial storm belonging to him was about to sweep across the globe. In Haiyun City's old district, a secluded tea house named Jingxin, Xian hung its sign discreetly. Tucked away in a remote corner with an unassuming facade, it stood as the most well-informed and secure trading hub in the entire underground black market of Haiyun City. On the second floor, in a private booth, the scent of sandalwood wafted gently. Su Chen sat in a red sandalwood armchair, his fingers lightly tapping the tabletop, his expression as calm as an unfathomable deep lake. Across from him sat a middle-aged plump man, dressed in a tang suit, rolling 2 walnuts in his hands. This man was Old Jean, the all-knowing of Haiyun City's underworld and the most prominent black market broker. Brother Su, you mentioned a big deal on the phone and even asked me to clear the place. Old Jean poured Su Chen a cup of tea with a beaming smile, yet his eyes sharp as hooks lingered on Su Chen's unremarkable canvas backpack. We're old friends, give me a hint. Su Chen neither drank the tea nor spoke idly. He simply lifted his backpack, unzipped it, grabbed the bottom, and tipped it over the red sandalwood table. A crisp, melodious sound like pearls cascading onto a jade platter shattered the tea house's tranquility. Dozens of crystal-clear, flawlessly cut diamonds spilled out like a resplendent river, refracting a dazzling, mesmerizing fire under the dim lamplight. The largest was the size of a pigeon's egg, the smallest as big as a soybean. The walnuts in Old Jean's hand clattered onto the table. His perpetually squinted eyes were now wide open, his breathing turning heavy and ragged as though someone had gripped his throat. Old Jean reached out a trembling hand, picked up the largest diamond, and held it up to the light. Its pure clarity and perfect cut were unmistakably top grade. No certificates, no source, only cash, Su Chen said in a flat tone, as if the treasures on the table were but a pile of glass beads. 20 million, take it all. 20 million. Old Jean's head snapped up, a flicker of greed flashing in his eyes before he masked it with a shrewd businessman's demeanor. Brother Su, the goods are indeed fine, but you know such black goods carry high risks. The market is sluggish and laundering costs money. He tried to haggle. It was a merchant's instinct. Yet Su Chen gave him no chance. 20 million final offer. He stood up and reached to gather the diamonds back into his bag. If it's a deal, fine. If not, I'll find someone else. Haiyun City has more than one buyer who can handle this lot. His movements were swift and decisive, without a hint of hesitation or the desperation of a quick sale. This composure stemmed from the confidence he had forged in the apocalypse. A world where order crumbled, human life was cheap, and such stones were plentiful. Seeing Su Chen truly about to leave, Old Jean panicked. With proper handling, this batch could double in profit on resale. Wait. Brother Su, stay. Old Jean hastily grabbed Su Chen's hand, his face plastered with a fawning smile, sweat beading on his forehead. 20 million it is. You can trust Old Jean to handle it. They'll transfer the money now. 5 minutes later, Su Chen's phone buzzed. He took it out and glanced at the bank notification on the screen, showing a long string of digits in the account balance. Your savings account ending in 8888 received a deposit of RMB 20000 at 1930 on October 24th. Current balance, 20 million. Staring at that number, Su Chen's heart raced involuntarily for a couple of beats, but quickly steadied. Money in this peaceful era was omnipotent. But in that other world, it was merely a bargaining chip to arm himself. Pleasure doing business. Su Chen pocketed his phone and turned to leave. Brother Su, if you have more goods like this, don't forget to come back to me. Old Jean called after him, his tone laced with deference. In this world, anyone who could casually produce so many diamonds without being preyed upon was undoubtedly a formidable figure. Leaving the tea house, Su Chen didn't go home. Instead, he took a taxi directly to a large outdoor adventure club on the outskirts of Haiyun City. On the surface, it sold camping and hiking gear, but with the right connections, one could procure many interesting items that skirted the edges of the law. With money in hand, Su Chen's confidence was fully bolstered. Boss, I need the best compound bow, he said, slapping a black card on the counter. Price is no object. I just want something powerful, precise, and rugged. The shop owner, a bald man with tattooed arms, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the black card, promptly retrieved a black gun case from the back. Opening the case, a menacingly styled matlack compound bow with a mechanical aesthetic lay nest Matthews V3X, top-tier hunting bow, 70-pound draw weight. With heavy armor-piercing arrows, it can pierce a wild boar's skull at 50 meters, the bald boss boasted. This is borderline contraband. I wouldn't show it to just anyone. Su Chen tested the bowstring. It was remarkably steady and snapped back with force. He'll take it, he nodded. Give me 100 dozen carbon armor-piercing arrows to match. Also, I need a custom batch of high-strength stab-proof vests with Kevlar lining capable of resisting maces and daggers. No problem. Also machetes, entrenching tools, stun guns, night vision goggles, military-grade drones. Any top-tier gear, you have, give me one of each. Su Chen rattled off a lengthy list like a menu. The bald boss stared in astonishment. This wasn't an expedition, it was preparing for war. Oh, and one more crucial thing Su Chen suddenly recalled. I want a batch of high-efficiency solar panels and matching large-capacity industrial battery banks. Top specs capable of powering a small server. The shelter had a generator, but fuel would eventually run out. Solar power was the long-term solution. That needs to be ordered. ITLL take about 2 days. He'll pay for rush delivery. I need it tonight. Su Chen raised 2 fingers. Double the price. Deal. The bald boss exclaimed excitedly. Late at night, in an abandoned warehouse, a fully loaded truck had just departed, leaving behind piles of supply crates. Su Chen closed the rolling door and took a deep breath, gazing at the mountain of goods before him. 20 million had dwindled to less than 5 million. But in exchange, he had secured his foundation for survival in the apocalypse, a guarantee of life. System store. With a thought and a sweep of his hand, the supplies vanished in an instant, all absorbed into his system space, now expanded to 10 cubic meters. The once empty space was now crammed to the brim, leaving no room to stand. I need to upgrade the space soon. This is far from enough, Su Chen remarked. Just as he finished gearing up, donning the T-800 exoskeleton, and preparing to cross back to the apocalypse, a red flash lit up the system interface in his mind. It was an alert from a simple sensor he had deliberately left at the shelter's entrance before leaving. Warning: abnormal vibrations detected at the shelter entrance. Warning: someone is attempting to breach the door. Su Chen's eyes turned icy sharp. His home in the apocalypse had been targeted. Courting death, he growled, gripping his compound bow tightly. Like a provoked leopard, he leaped into the azure blue teleportation vortex. In the apocalypse at the Banshan Manor Sanctuary, the air was thick with the stale smell of dust, and dim emergency lights cast mottled shadows along the corridor. The moment Su Chen stepped out of the rippling portal, a dull thud and agonized groans reached his ears. Bang! He swiftly raised his compound bow, an arrow knocked his gaze, sweeping like lightning toward the hall. At the heavy airlock door in the hall, Yi Hongyi knelt on one knee, her knee pressing firmly against a man's back. Her alloy dagger had already cut into the skin of his neck, blood trickling down the blade. The man was pinned to the cold floor, his face smeared with grease and dirt etched with terror. Most striking of all, his left sleeve was empty. He was a one-armed man. Boss, you're back. Hearing the commotion, Yi Hongyi glanced back at Su Chen, the killing intent in her eyes instantly receding, replaced by the demeanor of an obedient subordinate. This rat tried to pick the lock and I caught him. What should we do? Kill him. Her tone was flat, as if asking whether to step on a cockroach. The one-armed man on the ground, upon hearing the word kill, suddenly struggled violently, his hoarse voice shouting, No, don't kill me. I'm just hungry. I smelled the food. I didn't mean any harm. Please don't kill me. Su Chen lowered his bow and walked over slowly. He looked down at the man from above. The man was in his 30s, with hair as messy as a bird's nest, tattered clothes, and skin stretched taut over bones. Yet his single remaining right arm was muscular, with thick calluses on his tiger's mouth, marks left from years of wielding heavy tools or firearms. Moreover, though Yi Hongyi had subdued him, Su Chen noticed that the sturdy hydraulic door of the sanctuary had been half dismantled, its inner wiring exposed, clearly short-circuited with professional skill. If not for Yi Hongyi's vigilance, the door might have been opened. You know how to pick electronic locks? Su Chen, the one-armed man, froze, seemingly surprised by the question. Trembling, he nodded. A little. I used to be a mechanic. Tell me the truth. Su Chen's voice turned icy cold. He raised his compound bow slightly, the arrow aimed at the man's head. An ordinary mechanic wouldn't know military-grade hydraulic circuits. The man shuddered in fear, gritted his teeth, and bowed his head as if resigned. My name is Luo Gang. Before the apocalypse, I was a technician in an armored regiment specializing in repairing infantry, fighting vehicles, and tanks. Later, I retired. I lost this arm during a zombie outbreak. Bit off, I cut it off myself. An armored vehicle technician. Self-amputated arm. Su Chen's eyes lit up slightly. In this apocalypse, what was most scarce? Besides food, it was skilled talent. Especially a veteran who understood machinery maintenance and had military training. Though Su Chen had supplies brought from the modern world, he didn't know how to repair complex post-apocalyptic equipment. If he ever wanted to restart production lines, such talent was invaluable. Hongyi, let him go, Su Chen said calmly. Boss. Yi Hongyi hesitated, but obeyed, though her dagger remained poised to strike at any moment. Luo Gang scrambled to his feet, panting heavily, his gaze wary and fearful as he looked at Su Chen. Without a word, Su Chen reached into his backpack and pulled out an unopened pack of compressed biscuits, then tossed a bottle of mineral water over. Eat. Just one word. Luo Gang's eyes turned green at the sight of the food rolling to his feet. Not moldy bread or rotten meat, but intact wheat-scented compressed biscuits. Discarding all dignity, he pounced like a starving wild dog, tore open the package, and stuffed it into his mouth. Cough, cough. Eating too fast, he choked, rolling his eyes. He grabbed the water and gulped it down, then continued wolfing down the food. As he ate, tears streamed down his grimy cheeks, mixing with biscuit crumbs as he swallowed. Su-chan watched silently until he had licked the last crumbs from the wrapper. Are you full, eh? Su-chan asked. Full. Half full. Luo Gang belched, wiped his mouth awkwardly, and his gaze towards Su-chan shifted. Someone who could casually offer such food was undoubtedly a dominant force in this apocalypse. Work for me from now on. Su-chan pointed at the sanctuary. Fix things for me, risk your life for me. He'll feed you and keep you safe. Luo Gang's body trembled violently. Food to his heart's content. In this hellish world, that was like being given a second life. But he still hesitated, instinctively touching his empty left sleeve, and smiled bitterly. Boss. Missing one hand means I can't do fine work and am useless in a fight. Who says you're a cripple? A mysterious smile curled at the corner of Su-chan's mouth. He walked up to Luo Gang, looked him in the eye, and said slowly, as long as you're loyal, forget about one hand. In the future, I can get you the most advanced mechanical prosthetic, let you grow a new hand. Even stronger, tougher, and more powerful than your original one. What a... Luo Gang's head shot up, his pupils contracting sharply, his breath nearly stopping. A mechanical prosthetic. That was cutting-edge technology that only existed in legends reserved for the top elites of major bases. In this wasteland, it was a miracle. He looked into Su-chan's eyes, brimming with confidence and ambition, and for some reason he believed. With a thud, Luo Gang knelt heavily, his forehead striking the floor with a dull sound. Boss, my life is yours from now on. If you can make me whole again, I'll do anything you say. Through fire and water, I won't flinch. For a former soldier turned cripple, nothing was more alluring than wholeness. It was dignity, it was hope. Su-chan nodded with satisfaction. Get up. I have a task for you right now. Turning, Su-chan pointed at the server in the machine room. I need the backup power source for this system, the prototype of that high-energy battery. Do you know where to find it? Luo Gang stood up, his gaze now resolute. He glanced at the logo on the server and immediately said, I know. Boss, the prototype of that battery is at the Tianxing Technology Industrial Park, 10 kilometers away. I passed by there when I was wandering. At that, his face suddenly changed and his voice trembled slightly. But that place is a restricted zone. I heard from survivors that the factory there has been taken over by a group of mutated monsters. Very terrifying things. At dawn, acid rain fell beneath the gray sky. The shelter's heavy door slowly opened and 3 fully armored figures stepped into the downpour. Su-chan walked in the middle, clad in the futuristic T-800 exoskeleton, its hydraulic rods emitting a faint mechanical rhythm with each step. On his back, he carried a black Matthews V3X compound bow, a quiver hung at his waist, and in his hand, he held a gleaming machete. To his left was Yi Hongyi, who had changed into a tight, high-strength, stab-resistant suit that accentuated her agile figure. Her weapons remained the twin alloy daggers, but at Su-chan's insistence, a riot-stun gun was now holstered at her waist. On the right was the newly joined Luo Gang. Despite having only one hand, his demeanor had completely transformed. A polymer riot shield brought from the modern world by Su-chan was strapped to his left arm, while his right hand gripped a heavy fire axe. His weathered face was etched with the resolve and determination of a veteran. Boss, the edge of the industrial zone is just ahead. Luo Gang halted, pointing with his axe handle toward the faint silhouettes of massive factory buildings looming in the mist. The zombie density there is high. We need to be careful. Follow the plan, Su-chan commanded calmly. Luo Gang takes point, Hongyi provides cover, and he'll handle long-range sniping. Yes. The 3 swiftly shifted into combat formation. As they entered the outskirts of the industrial zone, a stench of decay assaulted their nostrils. The streets were littered with abandoned vehicles and scattered shipping containers. Groups of zombies lurked in the shadows. Roar. A zombie in tattered work clothes spotted them and charged with a guttural cry. Clang. Instead of retreating, Luo Gang stepped forward. He thrust his left arm shield forward, using the momentum to knock the zombie off balance. In the next instant, his right-hand fire axe traced an arc, cleaving through the zombie's skull with precision. Black blood splattered. The movement was clean and efficient, devoid of any unnecessary flourish. Such was the instinct of a veteran. Impressive, Su-chan praised. As they ventured deeper, the number of zombies grew. There are too many. Forcing our way through will draw a horde. Luo Gang frowned as he surveyed the terrain, then pointed to a row of shipping containers. Boss, we can move along the top. Using the height advantage, we can avoid the main mass of the undead. Su-chan nodded in agreement. With the exoskeleton's assistance, he easily leaped onto a 3-meter-high container. Yi Hongyi light as a swallow followed in a few swift bounds. Though Luo Gang had only one hand, with their help he too managed to climb up. The 3 moved across the container tops, as if on level ground. Below them, a dense sea of zombies reached up with gnarled hands and roared. The thrill of skirting the edge of death sent Su Chen's adrenaline surging. Twang! The compound bow in Su Chen's hand vibrated. A carbon-tipped armor-piercing arrow like a bolt of black lightning instantly pierced the eye socket of a mutant zombie 50 meters away that was trying to climb up. The immense kinetic energy from the arrow blew off half its skull. This is the power of modern technology, Su Chen thought, gazing at the bow in his hand, a sense of control filling him. Finally, they navigated through the densest zombie sea and arrived at the core facility of Tianqing Technology. It was a vast enclosed campus, its towering walls topped with electrified barbed wire now long dead. Strangely, as soon as they entered this area, the cacophony of zombie roars ceased abruptly. The silence was terrifying, broken only by the patter of acid rain on metal surfaces. The ground was eerily clean, no zombies and very few corpses. Only scattered bleached bones lay about, bearing clear signs of gnawing. Stop! Yi Hongyi, who had been on watch, suddenly halted. Every muscle in her body tensed. She held her daggers reversed before her chest, her sharp eyes fixed on a massive factory building ahead. What's wrong? Su Chen immediately raised his bow on alert. Something's off, Yi Hongyi whispered, a tremor in her voice. It's too quiet. Zombies have no territorial instinct. They wander everywhere. The absence of zombies here can only mean one thing. There's a stronger predator here that has either eaten all the nearby zombies or scared them off. Luo Gang finished her thought, cold sweat beading on his forehead. His knuckles were white as he gripped the axe. A chill wind blew from the dark maw of the factory, carrying a nauseating stench of blood and beast. It was not the stench of decay, but a foul mix of animal musk and gore. Huff! Huff! A low, raspy breathing like a broken bellows echoed from the depths of the darkness. Then pairs of green eyes flickered to life in the gloom. 1, 2, 3. Over a dozen pairs. It's a pack of mutant canines. Luo Gang exclaimed. Fall back. Find cover. But it was too late. With a deafening roar, a massive dark silhouette slowly emerged from the shadows. It was a mutant canine king, its size rivaling that of an adult bull. Its fur had fallen out, revealing dark, knotted muscles beneath, bulging like lumps of iron. A row of sharp bone spurs ran along its spine, extending to its tail. Most terrifying of all was its mouth. Its maw split open to its ears, revealing two dagger-like fangs that protruded outward. Yellowish saliva dripped from the corners of its mouth onto the concrete, sizzling and hissing as it corroded the surface, sending up wisps of white smoke. Behind it, over a dozen slightly smaller mutant hounds fanned out, completely cutting off any escape for Su Chen and his team. The canine king's eyes, filled with brutality and bloodlust, locked onto Su Chen as if he were a ready meal. Roar! A wave of foul wind rushed at them. The great battle was about to erupt. A fetid stench assaulted the senses, instantly filling the nostrils with a nauseating odor. The tank-sized mutated canine king did not give Su Chen and his companions much time to react. With a low growl, the surrounding dozen or so mutated evil dogs, already poised to attack, surged forward like arrows released from bows. The speed of these beasts was astonishing. In the dim light of the factory area, only gray-black afterimages could be seen. Defensive formation. Su Chen shouted, pulling back the Matthews V3X composite bow with all his strength. Boom! The bowstring quivered. A carbon-tipped, armor-piercing arrow whistled out, precisely predicting the trajectory of a mutated dog lunging from the left. The arrow, carrying immense kinetic energy, instantly pierced through its neck, pinning it to the concrete ground. However, there were too many remaining mutated dogs, and they seemed to possess some form of collective intelligence. Instead of charging recklessly, they executed a coordinated strategy. Several were tasked with a feigned frontal attack, while the others attempted to flank from behind. Want to sneak around? In your dreams. Luo Gang's eyes widened in anger, his weathered face now filled with determination. Though he had only one hand, the combat training of a former armored technician erupted fully at this moment. He stepped forward instead of retreating, sweeping the high molecular explosive shield strapped to his left arm violently. Bang! Two mutated dogs, attempting to break through from the side, crashed heavily into the shield. The tremendous impact jolted Luo Gang's body, the soles of his military boots screeching against the concrete, but he did not take a single step back. Get away from me! Luo Gang roared, swinging his heavy fire axe down with the force of the shield's rebound. Crack! The axe blade embedded itself deeply into a dog's spine, black blood splattering across his face. But he had no time to wipe it away, as another dog had already opened its gaping maw to bite at his leg. In this critical moment, a ghostly red figure flashed by. Yi Hongyi. She moved like a specter, dancing on the edge of a knife. No unnecessary movements, only sheer efficiency. She crouched low, gliding almost along the ground, her alloy dagger held reversed, and at the moment the dog was about to bite Luo Gang, she plunged the dagger into its jaw, instantly shattering its brainstem. Thud! The evil dog collapsed instantly. Thanks! Luo Gang gasped, shouting. Hold your position. Yi Hongyi's voice remained cold, but her gaze was fixed intently on the dog king that had yet to make a move. Though the ordinary mutated dogs were fierce, under the efficient teamwork of the three their numbers were rapidly dwindling. In just 2 minutes 7 or 8 corpses lay on the ground. As if sensing the incompetence of its underlings, the mutated dog king, which had been observing, finally moved. It did not charge blindly like an ordinary dog. Instead, its hind legs bent slightly, its dark red muscles rippling like waves, and then, boom! The ground instantly cracked. Its massive body unleashed a terrifying speed that was completely disproportionate to its size, directly bypassing Luo Gang and Yi Hongyi's defenses, crashing straight towards Su Chen, who was positioned at the back. Capture the leader first. This beast actually has tactical awareness. Boss, be careful, Yi Hongyi exclaimed, wanting to assist, but was entangled by 2 reckless mutated dogs. A fetid wind enveloped Su Chen. Too fast. At this distance, the bow had lost its effectiveness. Su Chen's pupils contracted sharply, but he showed no signs of panic. After struggling through the apocalypse for so long, combined with the enhancement from genetic agents, his nerve reflexes had long surpassed that of ordinary people. He decisively discarded the composite bow in his hands, crossing his arms in front of his chest. Zzz. The T-800 exoskeleton on his body powered up fully. The hydraulic rods, emitting a piercing shriek, and blue indicator lights flashed wildly. Bang! A heavy, dull sound echoed. Su Chen felt as if he had been struck heat-in by a train, sliding back 5 or 6 meters, his feet carving 2 deep grooves in the ground, finally stopping when his back slammed against a load-bearing pillar. Cough! Su Chen's chest surged with blood. If it weren't for the exoskeleton absorbing most of the impact, just this collision alone would have broken at least 3 of his ribs. Roar! The Dog King did not give him a moment to catch his breath. Its massive front paws pinned Su Chen's shoulders down, and its maw, dripping with corrosive saliva, lunged directly at Su Chen's head. The suffocating stench nearly overwhelmed Su Chen. "Wanna eat me? I doubt your teeth are up to the task." In the face of death, the ferocity in Su Chen's eyes was fully revealed. Instead of retreating, he charged forward. At the moment the enormous jaws were about to snap shut, he thrust his hands out, pushing up and down, firmly locking the Dog King's jaws. Zzz. The motors of the exoskeleton emitted a strained whine, and the metal joints and bones creaked under pressure. This was a pure contest of strength. On one side was a terrifying creature that had undergone mutation and evolution capable of crushing steel. On the other side was the crystallization of human industrial civilization, the ultimate output of a single soldier exoskeleton system. A glimmer of human-like astonishment flashed in the Dog King's eyes. It could not comprehend why this seemingly frail human could withstand its biting force. Saliva dripped onto Su Chen's exoskeleton visor, producing a corrosive hissing sound, and his vision blurred. "Give me. Open." Su Chen's forehead bulged with veins, his eyes bloodshot, and he let out a beast-like roar from his throat. On the system interface, the energy output of the exoskeleton had soared to an overloaded red state of 120. With a booming shout, Su Chen's arms exerted force outward. Crack! Crack! The corners of the Dog King's mouth began to tear, the sound of muscle fibers snapping clear to hear. It howled in pain, trying to break free, but Su Chen's hands clamped down on it like hydraulic pliers. At that moment, as the Dog King exposed a gap due to the intense pain, whooshed! A silver flash cut through the air. Yi Hongyi finally broke free from her entanglement, her dagger flying from her hand, transforming into a streak of light that accurately pierced the Dog King's left eye, embedding to the hilt. A woo! The Dog King let out a chilling scream, its body convulsing violently. Seizing the moment, Su Chen released one hand, swiftly drawing a special alloy tactical dagger from the outer side of his thigh, and with the exoskeleton's assistive power, drove it forcefully into the Dog King's unprotected throat. Thud! The blade penetrated flesh, piercing through to the back of the skull. Su Chen twisted his wrist, sharply pulling laterally. Scalding black blood gushed forth like a high-pressure water gun, splattering all over Su Chen. The massive body of the Dog King struggled violently a few times, its ferocity gradually fading, and finally collapsed heavily onto Su Chen, no longer moving. Huff! Huff! Su Chen pushed away the heavy corpse, gasping for air, his body trembling slightly. This was not fear, but a physiological reaction from exhaustion. The remaining mutated dogs, seeing their leader slain, let out a whimper and fled with their tails between their legs. "Boss, are you okay?" Yi Hongyi rushed over, reaching out to help Su Chen up, her eyes betraying a hint of uncontainable concern. The scene just now where Su Chen had withstood the Dog King and ripped open its massive jaws with his bare hands was incredibly impactful. "I'm not dead yet." Su Chen wiped the blood off his visor and glanced at Luo Gang not far away. Luo Gang was leaning against the shield, panting, a gash on his leg bleeding profusely, yet he grinned, giving Su Chen a thumbs up. "Boss, that was truly exhilarating. Tend to your wounds and clean the battlefield." Su Chen calmly ordered, "Hongyi, stand guard. Luo Gang, follow me into the laboratory." Since this dog king is here, it means what we're looking for is definitely inside. The three quickly tended to their injuries, stepping over the corpses scattered on the ground, and pushed open the half-closed door of the laboratory. Inside the laboratory, chaos reigned with scattered documents and broken instruments everywhere. But in front of the innermost, independent temperature-controlled cabinet, Chen halted. Although the outer glass was covered in dust, the items inside remained intact. A silver briefcase and a thick stack of sealed blueprints lay beside it. The case bore the logo of Tianqing Technology along with a prominent line of text: Project X, high-energy, graphene solid-state battery prototype, military grade. Found it. Chen's heart raced. In this era where energy ruled, this was the key to unlocking a trillion-dollar market, the wings for Shanghai technology to soar. Though Luo Gang did not grasp business, he understood technology. He leaned in to take a look at the parameters on the blueprints, his eyes nearly popping out. Energy density 10 times that of traditional lithium batteries. Supports 5C fast charging. If it can be mass-produced, today's tanks and drones could run for a month without refueling. Not just military use. Chen's eyes sparkled with brightness. The civilian market is where the real profit lies. He carefully opened the temperature-controlled cabinet and reached for the silver briefcase. A chilling sensation swept over him. At that moment, a faint blue holographic prompt suddenly appeared. Detected high-tech creation, incomplete high-energy graphene battery prototype. Detected accompanying production process blueprints, damaged version. Would you like to spend 500 points to utilize system computing power for analysis and optimization? Optimizing will yield a perfect version civilian process and advanced military blueprint. Optimize. Chen silently commanded in his heart without a moment's hesitation. 500 points were no small sum, but this was a matter of the core competitiveness of Shanghai technology. Anything produced by the system was bound to be of outstanding quality. Even a minor performance enhancement or cost reduction in industrial production meant profits in the billions. Ding. 500 points deducted. Analysis begins. Optimization complete. The Perfect Edition Graphene Battery Industrial Manufacturing Handbook and Production Line Improvement Plan have been generated. The data has been stored in the system space, and the host can access it at any time. As the system prompt faded, Chen felt a substantial weight of knowledge settle into his mind. A faint smile curled at the corner of his mouth as he stored the prototype and the stack of original blueprints into the space with a single thought. Boss, it looks like there's something else back here. Luo Gang, who was rummaging around, suddenly let out a startled exclamation. He stood before a warehouse door at the rear of the lab, pushing hard against the rusted iron portal. Chen and Yi Hongyi approached at the sound. As the beam of the flashlight pierced the darkness of the warehouse, Chen's breath caught for half a second. It was a raw material storage chamber. Neatly stacked on the shelves were hundreds of black sealed barrels, each bearing yellow hazard warnings and chemical formula labels. This is... Chen strode forward, wiped the dust off one of the barrels, and read the inscription, high-purity monolayer graphene powder, industrial grade. In this apocalyptic world with its collapsed industrial system, this high-tech raw material was neither edible nor potable, and it was too troublesome even to burn as fuel, nothing more than a heap of worthless garbage. But in modern society, this was the king of new materials known as black gold. Although the cost of producing graphene had dropped in recent years, this kind of high-purity industrial-grade powder was still sold by the gram. And here there were several tons of it. I've struck it rich, Chen murmured to himself. The visual impact was even more intense than when he had seen the diamonds earlier. Diamonds were mere luxury goods, but this black powder represented industrial hegemony. Luo Gang, do you know how to preserve the contents of these barrels? Chen asked. This stuff is sensitive to moisture. Oh, just keep it well sealed, Luo Gang replied, patting the side of a barrel. Looks like the seals are still intact. Excellent. Chen swept his hand out, unleashing his spiritual power. Whoosh. In an instant, the rows of black barrels on the shelves vanished into thin air, all stored away into the system space. The once relatively spacious area was now crammed full again. He'll need to unload this batch as soon as I get back, or there won't be room to turn around, Chen calculated to himself. The haul from this trip was astonishingly immense. Not only had he secured the core technology, but he had also walked away with a mountain of gold. By the time they left the Tianqing Technology Park, the sky had turned completely dark. Night in the wasteland was synonymous with death. We're not going back to the shelter tonight. Chen glanced at the wound on Luo Gang's leg. There's an abandoned gas station ahead. Well, rest there for the night. Luo Gang, that injury needs attention. Boss him, find this little scratch. That's an order, Chen cut him off. You're my chief engineer. Your hands and your mind are worth more than your life. I don't want you turning into a zombie because of an infection. Luo Gang was stunned for a moment, then his eyes reddened slightly as he nodded firmly. Inside the gas station's convenience store, Chen produced antibiotics and bandages, instructing Yi Hongyi to tend to Luo Gang's wound. I need to transport this batch of raw materials and equipment back first. Chen pointed upward. their secret code for the modern world. Hongi Luo Gang, your task for the next few days is to clear the threats around the shelter and try to fix that generator. He'll return with more supplies and weapons. Understood. Yi Hongi wiped the bloodstains from her dagger without looking up. As long as I live, this place won't fall. Rest assured, boss. By the time you get back, I guarantee not even a fly will get through the shelter's door. Luo Gang vowed, thumping his chest. Su Chen nodded. He walked to a corner of the convenience store, and after confirming no one was watching, activated the dual world portal with a thought. A swirling azure vortex appeared, swallowing his figure. Modern world Haiyun City, abandoned warehouse. When Su Chen stepped out of the void, it was already 2 in the deep night. The warehouse was silent, with only moonlight spilling across the concrete floor through the windows. The suffocating stench of decay was gone from the air, replaced by the dry, dusty scent of the surroundings. Su Chen let out a long breath, his taut nerves finally relaxing. He first released all the tons of graphene raw material barrels from his space, stacking them in a corner of the warehouse and covering them with a tarp. Then with great care he retrieved the silver-white briefcase. Opening it, the battery prototype, as crystal clear as black obsidian, lay quietly inside. Su Chen reached out and touched its icy surface, his gaze filled with intoxication. This was more than just a battery. It was his declaration of war against this world, the cornerstone of Shanghai Technology's rise. With this, companies like Thunder Energy and other industry giants would all be swept into the dustbin of history. He walked over to his desk, opened his laptop, and prepared to organize the system-optimized technical documents. Just then, a sudden vibration came from the phone on the desk. The abrupt sound was jarringly loud in the dead of night, and Su Chen's heart tightened. He picked up the phone. The screen displayed an unfamiliar local number. Who would be calling at this hour? A spam call? Or? Su Chen frowned slightly. An instinct honed in the apocalypse stirred a sense of unease within him. After a moment's hesitation, he pressed the answer button, but remained silent. The earpiece was dead silent. There was no enthusiastic sales pitch, no scammer's routine opening line. Only the sound of breathing. Heavy rhythmic breaths, like a beast lurking in the shadows, coldly watching its prey through the radio waves. Su Chen's eyes turned icy. He too said nothing, simply holding the phone, listening to the breathing on the other end. This silent standoff lasted a full 10 seconds. Then the line went dead. Su Chen stared at the fading screen, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. This was no wrong number. The spine-chilling pressure reminded him of Wang Tianlong, the man whose leg he had broken and whose car he had smashed. It seemed that arrogant gang boss had not been deterred by that lesson. Instead, like a venomous snake, he had set his sights on Su Chen from the shadows. Retaliation had arrived. Su Chen put down the phone, feeling not fear, but a flicker of excitement. He had killed even a zombie king in the apocalypse. What were a few local thugs? He walked slowly to the window, gently pulled back a corner of the heavy blackout curtain, and peered through the gap down at the street. The warehouse was in the suburbs, and the streetlights were dim. In the shadows across the road, an inconspicuous gray van was parked. Its body was covered in mud, and even its license plate was obscured. A sliver of the window was rolled down, and the glowing ember of a cigarette flickered in the darkness like a solitary eye of a beast opened in the night. At dawn on the second day, sunlight pierced through the thin mist over Haiyun City. Su Chen did not rush to deal with the van parked downstairs. Since they enjoyed playing this cat-and-mouse game, he would play along. His primary task now was to establish the reputation of Shanghai Technology. Only by standing in the sunlight, possessing a legitimate identity and immense social influence, would those rats lurking in the gutters dare not act rashly against him. At 9 in the morning, Su Chen, dressed in a sharp casual suit, arrived at the sales center of Jinmao Tower in the CBD core area of Haiyun City. This was the city's landmark building, housing only Fortune 500 companies or top domestic enterprises. "Good morning, sir. How may I assist you?" The receptionist wore a professional smile, but her eyes betrayed a hint of disdain as they swept over Su Chen's well-fitted but unbranded suit. "I'm here to lease office space," Su Chen said bluntly. "I want the best location with the widest view." "Certainly." The receptionist handed him a brochure. "We currently have several shared offices available on the lower floors at very affordable prices." "I want an entire floor." Su Chen interrupted her, his tone calm. "A high floor, preferably the top or second top." The receptionist froze, nearly dropping the brochure. "An entire floor?" She stammered. "Sir, a high floor level in Jinmao Tower is 2200 square meters. The rent is 12 yuan per square meter per day. Including property fees, the annual cost is nearly 10 million. She instinctively assumed Su Chen was either causing trouble or a naive startup founder who didn't know the stakes. Without a word, Su Chen pulled out a black gold card from his pocket and held it between two fingers. "Lead the way, or should I look elsewhere?" At the sight of the card, a symbol of supreme wealth and credit, the receptionist's attitude did a complete 180. Her smile instantly became genuine, even ingratiating. "One moment, please. I'll have the director of the leasing department attend to you personally." An hour later, Su Chen stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 58th floor of Jinmao Tower, gazing down at the ant-like traffic and the distant glistening sea. On the mahogany desk behind him lay a freshly signed lease agreement. Full year's payment up front with a deposit equal to 3 months' rent, 12 million yuan transferred directly. Such a generous client made the leasing director's face crinkle with smiles. Not only did he waive 3 months of rent-free period, but he also promised to dispatch the best renovation team immediately to make fine adjustments according to Su Chen's requirements. This will be the headquarters of Shanghai Technology from now on. Su Chen turned around, surveying the empty, yet promising space, a surge of ambition welling within him. With the location secured, the next step was the paperwork. Su Chen hired a professional agency to expedite the business registration for Shanghai Technology Co. Ltd. The registered capital was 100 million yuan, fully paid with business scope, including new energy technology, RD new material sales, and import-export trade. Though the company was still a shell with no employees, the framework had to be established first. In the afternoon, Su Chen returned to the newly leased office. It was empty with only a few temporary tables. He opened his laptop and pulled up the system-optimized industrial preparation manual for graphene batteries. Staring at the dense parameters and blueprints on the screen, Su Chen fell into deep thought. This technology was too advanced. The system's perfect version was even 2 generations ahead of Tianqing Technology's prototype. If he released it directly, it would not only attract the covetousness of business giants, but might also lead to being summoned by national security for a chat, or even being sliced up for research as an alien. It had to be neutered. Su Chen's fingers flew across the keyboard, beginning to blur the blueprints. Micronuclear energy interface. Delete. Bringing that out would be suicide. Adaptive temperature control coating. Delete. Current materials science can't manufacture it. Infinite cycle life. Change it to 2000 cycles. That's already enough to obliterate current lithium. Like a surgeon with a scalpel, Su Chen precisely excised the overly advanced organs, retaining only the core features that addressed the most pressing pain points. First, ultra-fast charging. 5 minutes of charging for 10 hours of talk time was no longer an advertising slogan, but reality. Second, ultra-high energy density. For the same volume, the battery capacity was 5 times that of ordinary batteries. Even these 2 features alone were enough to stir a cataclysmic wave in the current battery market, shattering all competitors into pieces. After finishing with the blueprints, Su Chen stretched and glanced out the window. The setting sun had painted the entire city in a golden red hue. Next step is to find a manufacturer. Su Chen knew well that giants like BYD or CTL would never accept orders from an unknown like him, and he also feared technology leaks. He had to find a small to medium battery factory on the brink of bankruptcy, desperate for orders to survive with decent equipment. Only such a factory would comply with his every demand for survival and accept his stringent confidentiality clauses. He searched online and identified a few targets in industrial parks around Haiyun City. He'll visit them tomorrow for a field inspection. Su Chen closed his laptop, packed up, and prepared to head home. After a busy day, the feeling of being watched seemed to have faded slightly, but he did not let his guard down. The elevator descended to the B2 underground parking lot. Ding! The doors opened, letting in a cold draft. Since the building was new with low occupancy, the parking lot felt exceptionally vast and desolate. Pale fluorescent lights flickered occasionally, emitting a faint buzzing. Su Chen stepped out, his leather shoes clicking crisply on the epoxy floor. Click, click, click. The echoes reverberated through the empty parking lot, lending an eerie atmosphere. Su Chen walked toward his parking space. It was a second-hand SUV he had just bought. Not as flashy as his previous Mercedes-Benz G-Class, but sturdy and practical for hauling goods. Just as he pulled out the car key and pressed the unlock button, beep beep, the headlights flashed, illuminating a concrete pillar ahead. Su Chen's fingers stiffened. That prickling sensation of being watched suddenly erupted, 10 times more intense than what he had felt over the phone the previous night. It felt as though countless venomous eyes were fixed on his back from the dark corners. The air seemed to freeze. Su Chen did not turn around, but his fingers gripping the car key were already tensed, knuckles white. His other hand moved discreetly toward his waist, where a large-caliber tactical electroshock weapon from the apocalypse was concealed. The killing intent was spreading. The air in the underground parking garage seemed to congeal, broken only by the low hum of distant exhaust fans. The prickling sensation of being watched reached its zenith at that moment. The moment Su Chen's fingers grazed the unlock button on his car key, a cold, hard object pressed against the small of his back. He was all too familiar with that tactile sensation. Having navigated the apocalypse for so long, he knew the construction of firearms by heart. It was a gun barrel, and judging by the feel of its caliber, it was most likely a counterfeit Glock fitted with a suppressor. Don't move. A hoarse voice rasped beside his ear, thick with the smell of tobacco. Brother Wang wants to have a word with you. Turn around slowly, hands up. Su Chen's pupils contracted slightly, but his expression instantly shifted to one of terror and panic. Don't kill me. I have money. I'll give you whatever you want. His voice trembled, his legs seeming to quake with fear as he slowly raised his hands and turned around. In the dim light, Su-chan saw the man behind him. He was middle-aged, wearing a gray jacket with a crew cut and a sinister look in his eyes. A faint scar ran down his left cheek. The gun in his hand, though pointed low, was always trained on the major artery in Su-chan's abdomen. At the slightest provocation, he could pull the trigger in an instant. He was a veteran. Biao looked at the young man before him, whose face was drained of color, and curled his lip in a contemptuous sneer. He had thought that someone who could come up with 10 million to pay off a debt would be something special, but it turned out to be just a lucky nouveau riche. Biao had dealt with countless greenhorns like this over the years. Enough talk. Get in the car. Biao jabbed the gun into Su-chen's stomach and with practiced ease reached for his pocket to frisk him. Behave yourself, or he'll bleed you right here. Just as Biao's hand was about to touch Su-chen's pants pocket, the terror in Su-chen's eyes vanished, replaced by a deathly stillness and coldness as deep as an abyss. That was a look Biao had only ever seen in hardened killers who had taken lives and seen blood. Damn! Alarm bells rang in Biao's head, and his professional instincts screamed at him to retreat and fire. But it was too late. Su-chen's right hand, still raised, didn't move, but his left hand, hidden by his pants pocket, shot into the bag with unimaginable speed and thrust upward. Zap! A blinding blue arc of electricity flashed between them, filling the air with the acrid smell of ozone. It was a high-voltage tactical stun gun that Su-chen had specifically asked Luo Gang to modify. Standard civilian self-defense tasers only output a few tens of thousands of volts, but this little gadget, upgraded with post-apocalyptic black tech, delivered a staggering 8 million volts in an instant. Even a full-grown brown bear would be instantly paralyzed by a jolt like that. The stun gun slammed hard into Biao's lower abdomen. Ugh! Biao's entire body convulsed violently, his eyes rolling back as foam bubbled from his mouth. The searing pain of the current coursing through his nervous system made him lose all control of his body. But he was a professional killer with blood on his hands. In the final second before consciousness slipped into darkness, his fingers, driven by muscle memory, squeezed the trigger. Bang! A muffled gunshot echoed through the empty garage. A flash of fire burst forth. At such close range, there was nowhere to dodge. The bullet spun through the air, tearing it apart, and struck Su-chen squarely in the left side of his chest where his heart was. The immense impact jolted Su-chen's body, forcing him half a step back. Biao watched, a cruel smile curling at the corner of his mouth before he collapsed like a sack of mud, completely unconscious. The parking lot fell back into a dead silence. Su-chen looked down at his chest. The expensive custom suit had a scorched, blackened hole from the bullet, and he could faintly smell the burnt fabric. Expressionless, he reached out, slipped 2 fingers into the hole, and pinched gently. He pulled out a deformed brass bullet head and casually dropped it on the ground. Clink! The crisp sound of metal hitting the floor. Good stopping power, but the penetration is a bit lacking. Su-chan patted his chest, feeling nothing more than a dull thud, as if someone had punched him. Beneath his suit, he wore a tight silver-gray vest. The Skywalker 3 nanofluidic bulletproof vest. It was a treasure he had discovered while looting a wealthy neighborhood shelter during the apocalypse. This vest, made of non-Newtonian fluid nanomaterials, was as soft as silk in normal conditions, but upon high-speed impact, its molecular structure would instantly lock, becoming as hard as armor-grade steel. Even a rifle round at close range would only break a couple of ribs. That was the gap in technology. This was a dimensional strike. Su-chen stepped over the spent shell casing on the floor and walked to the unconscious Biao. He looked down at the killer who had been so arrogant moments before with no pity in his eyes. Since you're here, don't bother leaving. Su-chen bent down, grabbed Biao by the collar like a dead dog, and effortlessly lifted the 170-pound man with one hand. His body, enhanced by genetic agents, allowed him to perform this feat without even breathing heavily. He walked to the back of his off-road vehicle and opened the trunk. The trunk was empty, perfect for a piece of cargo. Bang! Biao was roughly shoved inside, his body curled into a fetal position. Su-chen closed the trunk, picked up the counterfeit Glock and the spent shell casings from the ground, and tossed them all into his system space. Having done all this, he nonchalantly straightened his slightly rumpled collar to hide the bullet hole, then opened the door and slid into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life. The off-road vehicle, like a waking beast, slowly drove out of the underground parking garage and melted into the dazzling night of Haiyun City. Gripping the steering wheel, Su-chen stared at the flowing car lights ahead, his mind at peace. Wang Tianlong. The name flashed through his thoughts. He had thought that paying back the money would settle the matter. After all, everyone was after wealth. There was no need for a life-or-death struggle. But now it seems some people were not only greedy for money, but also for his life. Since you don't play by the rules, don't blame me for flipping the table. A cold smile curled at the corner of Su-chen's mouth. He didn't want trouble, but he certainly wasn't afraid of it. In the apocalypse, he had never backed down from a zombie horde, so why would he fear a few local thugs? Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. Perfect timing. He wanted to ask Wang Tianlong where he was. On the western outskirts of Haiyun City lay an abandoned industrial zone awaiting demolition. Overgrown with weeds, the crumbling ruins cast grotesque shadows under the moonlight. The warehouse Su Chun had rented sat at the edge of this area, a place where no one ever came. With a clatter, the rolling door was pulled down, sealing off all outside view. In the center of the warehouse, a high-powered industrial lamp was switched on, casting a stark white light directly onto the concrete floor. A biao was tied tightly to an iron chair, and a basin of ice-cold water was dumped over his head. Coughing violently, a biao was jolted awake. The harsh coughs pulled at his muscles, still aching from the electric shocks, and he let out a pained groan. He opened his eyes groggily, his vision gradually focusing. What came into view was Su Chen's indifferent face and the sci-fi-like metallic mechanical arm he held. Su Chun had already shed his suit, now clad in a black tactical combat uniform. On his right arm was a segment of the T-800 exoskeleton's mechanical arm assembly, its hydraulic rods emitting a faint hissing sound. Awake! Su Chun pulled up a chair and sat opposite a biao, his tone as flat as if chatting with an old friend. I'm short on time, so we'll only ask 3 questions. First, where is Wang Tianlong? Second, how many men does he have with him? Third, who else wants to move against me? A biao was tough. He spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva and sneered. Kid, go ahead and kill me if you've got the guts. Do you know who I am? I'm from the Black Serpent Society. Touch me, and your whole family will die. Boss Wang must already know I failed, just you wait until. Crack. A sickeningly crisp sound cut off his bluster. A piercing scream tore through the silence of the warehouse. Expressionless, Su Chun manipulated the mechanical arm. 2 metal fingers like hydraulic clamps casually crushed the bone of a biao's left index finger. A comminuted fracture. The pain, the kind that connects finger to heart, was enough to drive a man mad. First question, where is Wang Tianlong? Su Chen's voice remained utterly flat, as if he had just snapped a dry twig. Ill fuck your crack. The middle finger shattered. Oh, ill talk. Ill talk. Don't crush anymore. Please don't. A biao's psychological defenses crumbled instantly before absolute violence. His so-called professional integrity was as fragile as paper in the face of such inhuman torment. Staring into Su Chen's utterly impassive eyes, he finally realized that this young man was no lamb for the slaughter, but a demon in human skin. He even suspected this guy had killed more people than he had. 5 minutes later, Su Chun had all the information he needed. Wang Tianlong was hiding in a hillside villa on the western outskirts, a place he kept for his mistress, very secluded. Because things were tense recently, he had 6 bodyguards for close protection, all of them carrying heat. Besides Wang Tianlong, a hall master from the Black Serpent Society was also there. The two seemed to be discussing a big deal. Good. Su Chun nodded and stood up. Drenched in sweat, tears, and snot streaming down his face, a biao begged. I've told you everything. Let me go. I promise he'll disappear. He'll never let you go. Su Chun looked at him, a hint of mockery in his eyes. Let you go back to report, or let you come after me again. He raised his hand and struck a biao's carotid artery with the edge of his palm. A biao's eyes rolled back and he passed out again. Su Chun didn't kill him, at least not yet. Killing meant dealing with a body too much trouble. With a thought, a biao and the chair vanished into thin air stored away in the system space. The system space couldn't hold living things for long due to the lack of air, but it worked fine as a temporary prison, or next time he went to the apocalypse, he could just toss him into a zombie horde, the perfect way to dispose of the evidence. After dealing with a biao, Su Chun glanced at the clock on the wall. 3 a.m, the time when people were in their deepest sleep. Can't wait until tomorrow. Su Chun walked to the window and looked out at the pitch-black night. Since Wang Tianlong had already decided to kill, this was a war to the death. If he didn't act tonight, once word got back that a biao had gone missing, Wang Tianlong would be on alert, and finding him would become much harder. To eliminate the weeds, you must pull out the roots. Since you don't follow the law, well, play by the law of the jungle. Su Chun took a deep breath and turned to walk toward the equipment rack at the back of the warehouse. There his full set of individual combat gear from the apocalypse was stored. He stripped off his combat uniform, revealing his muscular build. Piece by piece, the black equipment was methodically donned. First, the nanofluid ballistic vest for close protection. Then the lightweight carbon fiber stab-resistant suit covering his limbs. Next came the leg and arm components of the T-800 exoskeleton. Though he hadn't worn the full heavy armor for concealment, these components were enough to grant superior mobility and explosive power. Click, click. The sound of buckles locking echoed through the empty warehouse, carrying a unique mechanical rhythm. Finally, Su Chun picked up the Matthews V3X compound bow and slung it over his back. The quiver was filled with custom carbon arrows. In urban combat, a silent bow was far deadlier and more covert than a firearm. He strapped a high-voltage stun gun and a tactical knife to his waist. He pulled on a black full-face tactical mask, revealing only a pair of icy eyes. At this moment, Su Chun looked like a futuristic warrior from a sci-fi movie, exuding a suffocating sense of pressure. He walked to a corner of the warehouse and lifted a tarp revealing a black high-displacement motorcycle underneath. It was a Ducati Diavel he had just bought a few days ago. To facilitate night operations, he had specifically asked Luo Gang to modify the exhaust, reducing the roar to a minimum. Su Chen mounted the motorcycle and put on his helmet. The engine let out a low growl before settling into a steady hum. The rolling door slowly rose. Su Chen twisted the throttle, and the black motorcycle shot into the night like a phantom. Target the hillside villa on the western outskirts. The hour of the hunt had begun. In the western outskirts lay the semi-mountain villa district, Haiyun City's renowned affluent enclave. Nestled against the hills and bordering the waters, each villa stood far apart, ensuring utmost privacy. This in turn provided perfect cover for tonight's operation. Wang Tianlong's villa was tucked away in the most secluded corner of the mountainside. At this hour, the villa was still ablaze with lights. Su Chen parked his motorcycle in a grove 2 kilometers away and activated the exoskeleton stealth mode. He moved like a nimble gecko, silently creeping up to the villa's outer wall. He raised his wrist and deployed a palm-sized micro-hummingbird drone, a product of apocalyptic technology. Mimicking biomimetic design, it flew almost soundlessly, equipped with thermal imaging and night vision. The drone silently ascended, crossing over the wall. Instantly, the tactical visor before Su Chen's eyes projected a real-time feed of the villa's interior. 2 in the ground floor hall, 1 on the second-floor balcony, 2 patrolling the yard. Su Chen calmly tallied the enemy's numbers and positions. In thermal mode, the silhouettes of these bodyguards blazed like torches in the night. 7 in total. Apart from the 6 a Biao had ratted out, the extra 1 was likely the hall master of the Black Serpent Society. First, cut the power. Su Chen piloted the drone toward the villa's rear electrical panel. A tiny probe extended from the drone's underbelly, piercing directly into the cable. A powerful current instantly short-circuited the entire villa's power supply. The lights within flickered out, plunging the whole estate into a dead silent darkness. What's going on? A blackout. Damn it, check the fuse box. Curses erupted from the guards in the yard as beams from flashlights began to dart wildly through the gloom. The moment had arrived. Su Chen bent his knees, the exoskeleton unleashed its force, and he vaulted effortlessly onto the 3-meter-high wall. Crouching atop it like a specter of the night, he slowly drew the compound bow from his back. He knocked an arrow and drew the string. The exoskeleton's targeting system instantly locked onto the nearest guard. A barely audible whisper cut through the air. Before that guard could even scream, a carbon fiber arrow had precisely pierced his throat. He clutched his neck and crumpled limply to the ground. What was that sound? Another guard, hearing the disturbance, just turned his flashlight. A second arrow followed, piercing straight through his femoral artery. In under 10 seconds, both hidden sentries in the yard were neutralized. Su Chen leaped into the yard, moving like lightning, using flower beds and shadows for cover as he rapidly approached the main building. The ground floor hall's door was flung open. 2 guards burst out, guns raised. Who's out there? They were met by Su Chen's merciless heavy punches. His power-assisted iron fist, carrying immense force, smashed into the first man's face. The crunch of shattered nasal bone was distinct. The man flew 3 meters backward and fell unconscious on the spot. The second guard tried to raise his gun, but Su Chen closed in, pressing the high-voltage stun gun directly against it. A flash of blue light, and the second man fell. Without pausing, Su Chen ascended the stairs to the second floor. In the master bedroom, Wang Tianlong was trembling, clutching a safe. The moment the power went out, he knew something was wrong. Brother Long, don't worry, I've got a gun. The Black Serpent Society's hall master was a burly, bald man gripping a sawed-off shotgun. He stared fixedly at the door, his forehead slick with cold sweat. Suddenly, the thick, solid wood door to the bedroom was kicked open from the outside. The entire door panel flew inward like a cannonball, slamming into the hall master and sending him crashing against the wall. The shotgun flew from his grasp. As the dust settled, a figure in a black mask radiating a cold metallic sheen strode in slowly. Wang Tianlong was petrified with terror, collapsing onto his backside, his pants instantly soaked. Who are you? Do you want money? There's 5 million in cash in the safe. And gold bars. Take it all. Take it all. Wang Tianlong babbled hysterically, pushing the safe towards Su Chen. Su Chen didn't even glance at the money. He walked up to Wang Tianlong, looking down at the once arrogant crime lord. Boss Wang, I heard you wanted to invite me for tea. The voice, processed through a voice changer, sounded low and hoarse like a whisper from hell. Wang Tianlong froze, then his pupils dilated in shock. You're Su Chen? Impossible. How could you? He couldn't reconcile this killing machine, resembling a warrior from the future, with the cowering That's not important. Su Chen crouched down, tapping Wang Tianlong's cheek with his tactical knife. What matters is you crossed the line. Don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I was wrong. He'll be your dog from now on. I have dirt on the Black Serpent Society. I can help you. Wang Tianlong wept and kowtowed frantically. Su Chen shook his head. I don't care for your money, I want your life. With that, he struck Wang Tianlong's nape with a single chop. Wang Tianlong's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed limply. Su Chen stood up and surveyed the room. This was the real world. Killing would bring trouble, even for scum like this. But he had a better way. With a thought, a ghostly blue portal materialized in the center of the bedroom, its vortex spinning slowly, exuding a chilling aura. Like discarding trash, Su Chen dragged the unconscious Wang Tianlong, the hall master, and the core thugs downstairs who had blood on their hands, tossing them one by one through the portal. On the other side of the portal lay an abandoned square in the apocalypse, teeming with zombies. For these scumbags, becoming a zombie's midnight snack was perhaps the best end. In this world, you're missing persons. In that world, you're fresh meat. Su Chen watched coldly as the last figure vanished into the vortex, then closed the portal. The villa fell back into dead silence. Su Chen quickly cleaned all traces of his presence, retrieved the arrows, and even used cleaning agents to wipe away any possible footprints. 5 minutes later, he mounted his motorcycle and disappeared into the vast night. The next morning, a blockbuster news story ignited Haiyun City's public discourse. Local famous entrepreneur Wang and several of his associates mysteriously vanished last night at his western hillside villa. Police investigation found no signs of struggle or any fingerprints or DNA at the scene. All valuables in the villa remained intact. According to insiders, Wang had been involved in multiple usury disputes. Police have not ruled out the possibility of vendetta or flight. The case has been classified as a special cold case. Su Chen sat in his newly rented office watching the news on TV, sipping coffee lightly. Sunlight streamed across his face, warm and bright. All the shadows had dissipated like smoke with last night's vanish into thin air. Now it was time for business. He turned to look at the large characters written on the whiteboard behind him: Star C Technology, Phase 1 Strategy, Lithography Machines, and Chips. Wang Tianlong's disappearance was like a stone thrown into an unfathomable lake, creating only a fleeting ripple before everything returned to tranquility. In this fast-paced city, people go missing every day and new headlines emerge daily. Apart from the addition of a special unsolved case in the police files and the circulating urban legend about a mysterious ruthless person, Su Chen's life remained largely undisturbed. After dealing with these dirty jobs, Su Chen shifted his focus back to the business landscape. After all, killing was merely a means. Getting rich was the ultimate goal. In his hand, he held the blueprint for the high-energy graphene polymer battery technology, as if gripping the key to a new world. However, transforming the blueprint into a money-printing machine was hindered by a chasm called mass production. In the next 3 days, Su Chen experienced the true meaning of the gravity of reality. He brought samples and technical parameters, visiting several large battery manufacturing factories around Haiyun City. The results were quite realistic. Graphene polymer battery. Kid, have you read too many sci-fi novels? Current technology simply can't achieve mass production. Are you here just for laughs? This was the derision from the technical director of a major factory. We need to verify your capital. A shell company with only 1 million in registered capital. Sorry, our production schedule is already booked until next year. This was from the reception of a listed company who didn't even let him in. Some even looked at his youthful face, implying that if he wanted to outsource, he would have to pay a mold fee and deposit of 5 million first. Su Chen stood at the entrance of a large factory, gazing at the towering office building, a cold smile creeping onto his lips. Arrogance was the greatest obstacle to survival. These giants immersed in the dividends of the old era had no idea that they were rejecting not just a young man, but a reaper destined to end their era. Since the big factories won't take me, then he'll find someone obedient. Su Chen sat in his car, scrolling through the map on his phone, ultimately locking his gaze on an old industrial area on the outskirts of Haiyun City. There was a small factory named Hongguang Electronics. According to publicly available information online, this factory had ceased operations for 3 months due to a broken capital chain, and the owner was eager to sell equipment to pay off debts. At Hongguang Electronics, the weeds had grown up to knee height, and the rusty iron gate was half ajar, presenting a scene of desolation. In the factory manager's office, smoke swirled around. Zhang Hong sat in a peeling boss chair with a distressed expression, the cigarette butts at his feet piled up like a small mountain. In his 40s, he had once been an ambitious entrepreneur, but in recent years the new energy industry had become too cutthroat, with big fish eating small fish. As a small fry without technology or background, he could only be washed away by the waves. I guess I have to sell. I have no other choice. Zhang Hong looked out at the equipment that remained shiny, even in disrepair, his eyes a bit red. That was his hard work now to be sold as scrap metal. Knock, knock, knock. A sound came from the door. The door's not locked. Scrap collectors can come in and take a look. The price is negotiable. Zhang Hong didn't even look up, speaking hoarsely. The door opened, but instead of a greasy scrap collector, a young man in a suit and tie with a tall and upright demeanor walked in. Su Chen waved his hand to disperse the thick smoke in front of him, scanning the shabby office before finally resting his gaze on Zhang Hong. Manager Zhang. I'm Su Chen from Xinghai Technology, here to discuss cooperation. Zhang Hong was taken aback for a moment and then forced a bitter smile. Mr. Su, if you're here to buy equipment, then you're too late. The bank will come to seal it tomorrow. If you're here to discuss outsourcing, do I look like I can start production? He regarded Su Chen as the kind of rich second generation who had no idea of the hardships of the world and was just playing with family money. I'm not here to buy equipment. I'm offering you a fortune. Su Chen pulled out a chair and sat down, taking out a palm-sized, unremarkable black battery from his briefcase and gently placing it on the ash-covered table. Clunk. The sound was crisp. Zhang Hong glanced at the battery, frowning slightly. What is this? A power bank. This is something that can save your life. Su Chen spoke calmly. I want you to restart the production line and help me outsource this kind of battery. I'll provide the funds and materials. You only need to focus on production. In return, I'll give you 10 equity, plus help you pay off all your debts. Zhang Hong looked as if he had heard the greatest joke in the world. Mr. Su, don't joke with me. Pay off debts. Do you know how much I owe? 8 million. And you expect me to rely on this black thing? He shook his head, disdainfully picking up the battery to weigh it. It was light, felt like plastic rather than metal, and although it was finely made, it showed no signs of technological prowess. Young people nowadays really talk big. Zhang Hong sighed, preparing to show him the door. Su Chen did not argue. He stood up, scanning the office one last time before pointing at a large industrial spotlight in the corner cover. What is the power of that lamp? That. It used to be for testing with mines. A 2 kilowatt high-power xenon lamp, an electricity-hungry beast. Zhang Hong was puzzled. Try connecting it. Su Chen pointed at the battery in his hand. Zhang Hong was stunned. Mr. Su, are you joking? That spotlight needs to be connected to 380 V industrial electricity or a specialized large battery pack. Your little battery. It probably won't even light the filament. If it does, it won't last more than 2 minutes. Just try it. Su Chen's tone was unyielding. Oddly enough, Zhang Hong was intimidated by Su Chen's resolute demeanor and actually stood up to find 2 wires. Don't blame me if it breaks. Zhang Hong muttered to himself as he skillfully connected the battery's positive and negative terminals to the spotlight's input. The moment the connection was made, buzz. Accompanied by the buzzing sound of flowing electricity, the long, silent industrial spotlight erupted with blinding light. The beam of light cut through the office's murky smoke like a sword, striking the opposite wall and illuminating it to a ghostly white, even revealing the dust in the air. It's lit. Zhang Hong's eyes widened, the half-burnt cigarette in his mouth falling onto his pants unnoticed. This brightness and stability were absolutely at full power output. How is this possible? How small is this battery? How can it power a 2 kilowatt load? As an industry veteran, Zhang Hong's worldview was shaken at that moment. But this was only the beginning. Su Chen glanced at his wristwatch, calmly sitting back in his chair. Don't rush, let it shine for a while. 10 minutes passed. The light remained dazzling, showing no signs of flickering or dimming. Zhang Hong's expression shifted from shock to confusion as he touched the surface of the battery. It was surprisingly cool. There was absolutely no heat, phenomenon typical of high current discharge. 30 minutes passed. Zhang Hong could no longer sit still. He circled around the spotlight like it was an alien creature. Ordinary lithium batteries of the same size would have overheated and exploded or run out of power under such conditions. But this battery was steady as a rock. 50 minutes. 1 hour. When the time crossed the 60-minute mark, the beam of light remained as glaring as the midday sun. Zhang Hong completely broke down. He collapsed to the ground, trembling as he held the still cool black battery, his eyes wild with fervor like a devout believer encountering a true deity. A miracle. This is a miracle. As an insider, he knew too well what this meant. With a size only 1/5 of traditional batteries, its energy capacity was 10 times greater, and it didn't heat up with a discharge curve as perfect as a straight line. This was no mere battery. It was an energy revolution. It was a money-printing machine. It was a nuclear weapon that could crush all competitors. Mr. Su. No God, Su. Zhang Hong suddenly turned his head, staring at Su Chen with bloodshot eyes, his voice hoarse from extreme excitement. Is this something we can really produce? Su Chen looked at his frenzied appearance, nodding in satisfaction. This was the dimension reduction strike of technology. In the apocalypse, this type of battery was merely a backup energy module for individual exoskeletons, commonplace. But on Earth in 2024, it was a myth. As long as you have a production line, I have the technology. Su Chen stood up, walking to the window, gazing at the abandoned factory area outside. Manager, Zhang, do you still? I don't think so. Absolutely not. Zhang Hong leaped up from the ground, rushing over to firmly grasp Su Chen's hand, his grip strong enough to crush Su Chen's bones. Mr. Su will take this order. Even if I don't get paid, I'll take it. Even if I have to sell my blood, I'll take it. As long as I can participate in production, this factory will be yours in the future. It'll work for you. It'll work for you for the rest of my life. He knew he had seized the only opportunity to turn his life around. As long as this battery was produced, companies like Thunder Energy and Tesla would have to step aside. Su Chen withdrew his hand and took out a prepared contract from his briefcase, slapping it on the table. Sign this, and tomorrow the equipment will be delivered. They'll have the materials sent over. I need you to get the production line ready within 3 days. Zhang Hong didn't even look at the terms, grabbing a pen and signing his name, his hand shaking as if he were experiencing Parkinson's. After signing, he looked up, his eyes shining with an unprecedented glow of flame ignited by ambition. Mr. So what is this battery called? Su Chan turned his head, his gaze penetrating through the window towards the deep night sky, where stars twinkled as if foretelling the journey ahead. It will be called Xinghai No. 1. Su Chen's voice was soft, yet carried a power that transcended time and space. It will illuminate this era. 3 days later, in Haiyun City at the Kempinski Grand Hotel. Within the resplendent banquet hall, crystal chandeliers refracted dazzling light, where elegant figures mingled amid the clinking of glasses. This was a new energy industry networking reception hosted by the Haiyun City Chamber of Commerce, gathering nearly all representatives from upstream and downstream enterprises, channel distributors, and investors across the province. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the ferment of money. Su Chun, dressed in a well-tailored dark blue custom suit, stood quietly in a corner, a glass of champagne in hand, his expression serene. Beside him, Zhang Hong appeared visibly nervous, occasionally tugging at his somewhat tight tie. President Su, that portly man over there, is the boss of Shuntong Logistics. He controls 30% of the province's distribution channels. And that bespectacled one is the purchasing director of Aurora Technology. Zhang Hong lowered his voice, rattling off introductions of the influential figures present, as if reciting a cherished list. Though he held a trump card like Star C1, Zhang Hong was after all a small factory owner who had just crawled back from the brink of bankruptcy. Faced with such an upscale occasion, the deep-seated inferiority complex within him was still hard to suppress. Relax. Su Chun took a sip of his wine, his gaze calm. We're here to find partners today, not to beg. Just then a stir rippled through the crowd. The clusters of people who had been scattered in conversation seemed drawn by a magnetic force, surging toward the center of the banquet hall. There, a middle-aged man in a white suit with slicked-back hair was surrounded like a star encircled by the moon. Every move he made exuded the arrogance of a superior, his laughter loud and ostentatious. That's Zhao Gang. Zhang Hong's face instantly darkened, a flicker of hatred in his eyes. The marketing manager of Thunder Energy. He was the one who declared a blacklist against Hong Wang, forcing all my suppliers to cut ties and nearly driving me to ruin. Thunder Energy, a dominant force in the domestic new energy sector with a market capitalization in the hundreds of billions, held sway over the industry. Su Chun narrowed his eyes. Come on, let's go meet him. Setting down his glass, Su Chun strode forward. Zhang Hong gritted his teeth and followed, bracing himself. At that moment, Zhao Gang, beaming, was boasting to several channel distributors. Our Thunder's new generation lithium battery has achieved a 15% increase in energy density. That's the industry ceiling. Anyone who fails to secure our goods will be left with nothing next quarter, ha ha. The people around echoed his sentiments, flattering him with sycophantic smiles. President Zhao is absolutely right. Only by sticking with Thunder can we get a piece of the pie. Indeed, Thunder's technology is unparalleled. Who can compete? Amid this chorus of flattery, an untimely voice cut through. Unparalleled. Not necessarily. The voice was soft yet cut clearly through the noisy crowd. Silence fell instantly. Zhao Gang's smile froze, and he turned his head, his gaze landing on Su Chun and Zhang Hong. When he saw Zhang Hong, undisguised contempt flickered in his eyes. Oh, who do we have here? Isn't this President Zhang of Hongguang Electronics? Zhao Gang exaggerated his tone, drawing laughter from those around him. What? Sold off all your junk? Sneaked into this high-end reception for free food and drinks? How do the security guards do their jobs, letting any riffraff in? Zhang Hong's face turned crimson, his fists clenched tightly. Su Chen stepped forward, shielding Zhang Hong, and faced Zhao Gang with an indifferent expression. Manager Zhao, I presume. I'm Su Chun of Star C Technology, now Hong Wang's partner. We've just developed a new battery with performance over 3 times that of Thunder's. I'm here today to offer everyone present a chance to get rich. At these words, utter silence fell over the hall. 3 seconds later, a deafening roar of laughter erupted. 3 times. Has this kid lost his mind? Thunder only managed a 15% boost, and he dares to boast 3 times. That's the biggest lie ever. Star C Technology. Never heard of it. What scam company is that? Zhao Gang laughed so hard tears almost came to his eyes. He looked at Su Chun as if a fool, stepped forward and poked Su Chen's chest with his finger. Kid, are you desperate for fame? 3 times. Do you have any idea how high the barriers are in battery technology? Based on that shabby Hongguang of yours. That garbage heap that can't even pay wages. Zhao Gang's expression suddenly turned venomous and harsh. I'm telling you, even if you could make a decent battery, not a single screw in Haiyun City would dare sell to you. And not a single distributor would dare handle your goods. He swept his gaze around and declared loudly, everyone, I Zhao Gang am putting it out there. Anyone who dares to take orders from Star C Technology will be crossing Thunder Energy. Not a single piece of Thunder's goods will go to them from now on. It was a blatant threat. Such was the arrogance of capital. The distributors who had been slightly curious about Su Chen immediately recoiled, as if from a plague, eager to avoid any association with him. Zhang Hong closed his eyes in despair. It was over, completely over. Blacklisted publicly by thunder, the offline channels were utterly severed. Yet Su Chen smiled. That smile held no trace of fear, only a mocking amusement, as if watching a clown perform. He reached out and gently brushed aside Zhao Gang's pointing finger, his movements as elegant as flicking dust off his clothes. Manager Zhao, remember what you said today. Su Chen's voice was calm, but everyone present could sense the thunder rumbling beneath that calm surface. And he'll put this out there too. 1 month. Su Chen raised a finger. In 1 month, Thunder Energy will come begging. You will kneel at the gates of Hongguang Electronics, begging us for our goods. The hall erupted. This was no longer arrogance. It was madness. To make $100 billion giant like Thunder beg a shell company. It was pure fantasy. Ha ha ha. Beg you to go bankrupt. Zhao Gang doubled over with laughter, pointing at Su Chen's nose. Get lost. Stop making a fool of yourself here. Su Chen said not another word. Words were useless, actions speak louder. He turned, grabbed the dazed Zhang Hong, and strode toward his upright silhouette stood as firm as a pine, unyielding under the gaze of countless mockeries, contempt, and schadenfreude surrounding him. The confidence and pride radiating from his very core inexplicably silenced a few who had been jeering. Stepping out of the hotel, the cool night breeze brushed against them. Zhang Hong leaned against a pillar, as if his backbone had been removed, his face pale. President Su. It's hopeless. With Zhao Gang's outburst, all offline channels in the province are dead. No one dares to offend Thunder. Even if we produce the batteries, we can't sell them. Such was the terror of monopoly. Good wine fears a deep alley, especially when a fierce tiger blocks the entrance. Su Chen gazed at the bustling traffic, pulled out his phone, and lit the screen. The glow illuminated his face, tracing sharp, cold lines. Zhang Hong, times have changed. Su Chen's voice carried a hint of mockery. Those old-timers still think controlling the distributors means controlling everything. They've forgotten. This is the internet age. Who said we're going offline? Su Chen turned to Zhang Hong, ambition blazing in his eyes. We're going direct sales. Since they've blocked the road, well, blasted open. Prepare for a launch event. No venue needed, no media. Just hold it at the factory. Su Chen waved his phone. Live stream it across the entire internet. I want the world to witness firsthand what a true industrial miracle looks like. Since the decision to overturn the table had been made, he needed the confidence to do so. Confidence stemmed from 2 factors: absolute product strength and extreme cost control. Over the next half-month, Su Chen plunged into a frenzied mode of cross-dimensional cargo hauling. In the post-apocalyptic world at the 73rd ruins, once a high-tech industrial park, only crumbling walls remained. Yet deep within those collapsed warehouses lay treasures that modern society could only dream of. With a rustle, Su Chen swung his entrenching tool, clearing away thick dust to reveal piles of black powder bags beneath. The bags bore faded markings: industrial-grade, high-purity, single-layer graphene raw material. In the modern society of 2024, high-purity graphene was known as black gold, costing hundreds or even thousands of yuan per gram, with minuscule yields, a strategic resource in high demand but scarce supply. But in the post-apocalyptic world, it was trash. Industrial waste, not even worth a moldy piece of bread. Like a diligent hamster, Su Chen hauled bag after bag of these priceless waste materials into his system space. 100 kilograms. 500. A ton. Watching the mountain of graphene pile up in his system space, Su Chen couldn't help but laugh out loud. If the modern laboratories that spent millions to extract mere grams of graphene could see this, those old professors would likely suffer a stroke on the spot. This was a dimensional reduction strike. This was resource domination. With these nearly cost-free top-tier raw materials, the cost of Su Chen's Star C1 battery was compressed to an outrageous level. At the Hongguang Electronics factory, the roar of machinery never ceased. Since Su Chen brought that batch of mysterious raw materials into the warehouse, the entire factory had been running like a shot of adrenaline. Workers were astonished at how easy the new battery slurry was to process. The fluidity was perfect, the coating uniform, and the yield rate hit an astounding 99.9. The days of scrapping entire batches during lithium battery production were gone. Zhang Hong had even moved, and with dark circles under his eyes, he was as frenzied as a madman. He watched the first batch of finished batteries roll off the line and personally placed them on the test bench. The moment the test data came out, the entire technical department erupted. Half the volume, 10 times the capacity of traditional lithium batteries. It supported 5C ultra-fast charging, full charge in 10 minutes. Its cycle life exceeded 5,000 charges. Most terrifyingly, under high current discharge, the temperature rise was less than 5 degrees. A monster. We've created a monster. Zhang Hong clutched the test report, his hands trembling so violently he could barely hold the paper. This wasn't just a battery, it was the death knell for the old energy era. Meanwhile, Su Chen was making his final gamble. He spent every last cent of cash he had, 5 million. All of it was poured into promotion. Weibo trending topics, Douyin splash screens, Bilibili influencer-sponsored videos, pinned posts on major tech forums. Chen didn't hire celebrity endorsements or create flashy commercials. His marketing strategy was simple and brutal: a single poster with black text on a white background featuring that ordinary-looking black battery and a bold line redefining energy. Say goodbye to daily charging and embrace infinite possibilities. Star C1 October 15th, live stream worldwide. This arrogant tone instantly ignited a firestorm on the internet. Of course, most of it was criticism. LOL, redefining energy. Scammers don't even bother with the script anymore. Which fly-by-night factory is this? Say goodbye to daily charging. If you can manage every 2 days, it'll eat my shoe live. Star C Tech. I looked it up. A small company with $1 million in registered capital. Forget it, just here to scam funding. Waiting for the crash. These days, blowing smoke doesn't cost a thing. Chen sat in his office watching the torrent of mockery and doubt on the screen, a faint smile curling at the corners of his mouth. Keep insulting, the fiercer the better. In this age where traffic reigns supreme, even notoriety is fame. As long as there was attention, as long as people tuned in for the live stream, half the battle was won. As for the other half, the product would speak for itself. Just 3 days before the scheduled launch, the long-silent industry giant Thunder Energy suddenly made a move. Without any warning, they held an emergency press conference. Zhao Gang stood beaming under the spotlight, grandly unveiling a new product called Thunder X. This is a groundbreaking product. Energy density increased by 30. We will lead the industry into the future. Zhao Gang waved his arms on stage, basking in the flash of cameras. At the end of the conference, Zhao Gang looked meaningfully into the lens and said, recently some clueless little companies have been parading fake specs to deceive the public. I urge consumers to keep their eyes open, trust the big brands, trust technological accumulation. Some jokes are best taken with a grain of salt. Though he didn't name names, everyone knew who he was talking about. For a moment, online opinion swung completely in one direction. Thunder's new product launch trampled Star C Tech into the mud. Chen watched Zhao Gang's smug face on the live stream and quietly closed the browser. A counterfeit meeting the real deal. That's a death wish. He stood up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked toward the warehouse. There 100,000 units of the already packaged Star C1 batteries stood ready for dispatch. They were the funeral he had prepared for this old era. Zhao Gang, you think you're slapping my face? Chen straightened his collar, his gaze as cold as a blade. Actually, you're just setting the stage for me. All the mockery, all the doubt, all the suppression. Before absolute power, they would all turn into the loudest slap in the face. 3 days later, the show begins. In Haiyun City at Hongwang Electronics Factory, the cicadas outside the window screeched desperately, as if trying to shatter the stifling afternoon heat. Inside the manager's office, the air conditioner was set to its lowest temperature, yet it still couldn't cool the dense cold sweat on Zhang Hong's forehead. President Su, how can you still be in the mood for tea? Zhang Hong paced anxiously in the office, the sound of his shoes scraping against the floor grating on the nerves. He clutched a tablet in his hand, the screen displaying a freshly received legal letter and the alarming dark red headline of a trending topic on Weibo. Thunder Energy's legal department officially sues Star C Technology for patent infringement. Uncovering Star C Technology, how a shell company with a registered capital of 1 million fabricated the lie of an energy revolution. Famous fraud-busting blogger Fang Zhouzi reports graphene batteries are pseudoscience. Beware of new types of fundraising fraud. In just half a day, the direction of public opinion online had shifted from initial mockery to a full-scale siege. Thunder Energy's move was ruthless. They didn't bother discussing technical parameters, directly slapping on the 3 labels of fraud, infringement, and suit. Coupled with a large number of paid trolls leading the narrative, the clueless netizens were instantly ignited with a sense of justice. The official account of Star C Technology had been bombarded with hundreds of thousands of insults, cursing generations of their ancestors. President Su, the Bureau of Industry and Commerce, and the Tax Bureau just called. They said they've received numerous public reports demanding our cooperation in an investigation. Zhang Hong's voice trembled, and those small distributors who pre-ordered the batteries are all demanding refunds. If this continues, we'll be drowned by public criticism before the press conference in 2 days. Chen sat on the sofa, gently blowing away the tea leaves floating in his cup, his expression as calm as a pool of stagnant water. He even had the leisure to pick up his phone and scroll through the most vicious comments. These netizens have quite a way with words. Chen chuckled, pointing at a comment and reading aloud, Star C Technology is the pinguo of the energy industry, selling fakes while trying to act virtuous. Tisk, what a metaphor. President Su. Zhang Hong was about to break down. Old Zhang, stay calm. Chen set down his teacup, stood up, walked over to Zhang Hong, and patted his shoulder. You've been in business for years, don't you understand a basic principle? In the age of the internet, the most terrifying thing isn't being criticized, it's being ignored. He pointed at the constantly jumping trending index on the tablet. Thunder Energy is spending real money to buy us traffic. If we had to pay for that tens of millions in promotional fees ourselves, how many batteries would we have to sell to earn it back? A glint of mockery flashed in Su Chen's eyes. Let them slander us. Negative fame is still fame. The greater the traffic now, the louder the slap of reversal will be in 2 days. The more viciously they curse, the more humbly they'll kneel later. But Zhang Hong hesitated. No buts. Leave dealing with the Bureau of Industry and Commerce and the Tax Bureau to me. As long as our procedures are legal, we have nothing to fear. As for the internet, a cold smile curled at the corner of Su Chen's mouth. Let the bullets fly a little longer. After calming Zhang Hong, Su Chen glanced at the time. It was 3 in the afternoon. 48 hours until the press conference. Although the situation in the modern world seemed perilous, it was actually under his control. True technological barriers cannot be breached by paid trolls. As soon as the Star C1 prototype is unveiled, all rumors will collapse on their own. The key now was to relax his tense nerves. I'm going to the warehouse to take inventory. Don't let anyone disturb me. Su Chen tossed out the words, turned, and walked into the private warehouse at the deepest part of the factory. As the heavy iron door closed, the chaos outside was instantly shut out. Su Chen skillfully locked the door from the inside and focused his mind. System initiate transfer. The apocalypse ruin no. 73. The air was thick with the familiar smell of sulfur and decay. The sky was still that oppressive leaden gray. Su Chen's figure materialized out of thin air in the command room of the shelter. He had originally come to transport the last batch of special edition batteries for the press conference display and to enjoy a moment of peace in this world without online harassment. But the moment his feet touched the ground, a piercing shrill air raid siren wailed like death's scream, shattering the silence of the ruins and rattling Su Chen's eardrums. This was no drill. It was a highest-level enemy attack alarm. Boss, you're finally here. The door was slammed open and Luo Gang rushed in covered in blood. This 2-meter-tall iron tower of a man now had a face full of terror. The giant axe in his hand was still dripping with dark red flesh. What's going on? Su Chen's eyes narrowed. The lazy demeanor of a modern businessman vanished, instantly replaced by the murderous intent of a wasteland lord. A zombie horde. It's a zombie horde. Luo Gang gasped for breath, pointing outside. A horde came out of nowhere. The scale is terrifying. At least 30,000. No, 50,000. They're charging straight for our factory like mad. 50,000. Su Chen's heart sank. Previous small hordes had been at most a few thousand, easily handled by the shelter's walls and traps. But 50,000. This was no longer a harassment, it was a war. Have you found the cause? Su Chen strode toward the monitoring console. Probably the noise. Luo Gang wiped the blood from his face. To meet the production deadline for the batteries, our generators and stamping machines have been running day and night. The sound traveled too far. Plus, the wind direction has changed recently, carrying the scent of the living into the dead's territory. On the monitoring screen, a drone transmitted the footage. Su Chen's pupils contracted slightly. On the horizon, a dark, surging tide was slowly writhing. It wasn't water, it was countless bobbing heads, countless rotting faces. They pressed together, jostling each other, their roars merging into a low rumble that made the very earth tremble. At the forefront of the horde, several massive mutants with gray rock-like skin could be seen. Second-tier strength-type zombies commonly known as tanks. Where's Hongi? Su Chen asked. Sister Hongi is laying mines on the first defense line, but it's useless. There are too many, we can't kill them all. A hint of despair crept into Luo Gang's voice. Boss, retreat. Before they surround us, let's take the core supplies and escape through the secret path in the back mountain. Retreat. Su Chen looked at the industrial base on the screen, which had just begun to take shape. This place held the production lines he had painstakingly repaired, warehouses full of raw materials, and the newly established order of survivors. If they retreated, this place would be razed to the ground in an instant. All his achievements would be lost. If they didn't retreat. Su Chen glanced at the countdown on the system panel. 46 hours remained until the Modern World press conference. On one side, a storm of public condemnation in modern society that could only be turned around by the press conference. On the other, a life-or-death crisis, as the apocalypse base was about to be overrun. 2 worlds, 2 storms, descending simultaneously. This was a hellish difficulty start. We can't retreat. Su Chen took a deep breath, his voice cold and firm. If I can't even defend my own stronghold, how can I talk about rebuilding civilization? How can I talk about reaching for the stars? He turned his gaze, cutting through Luo Gang's panicked face like a blade. Luo Gang stopped, conserving ammunition. Su Chen waved his hand, and the system space opened. With a rumble, crates of brand-new, oil-scented weapons materialized on the floor. These were the hard goods he had acquired through illegal channels, spending his last bit of modern cash. There were even a few boxes of homemade Molotov cocktails made from beer bottles and gasoline. Tonight we're going to throw a grand bonfire party. Su Chen grabbed a Molotov cocktail and strode out. Let's go to the wall. On the high walls of the factory, the wind carried the nauseating stench of corpses. Yihongi, dressed in pure white, now had her clothes stained with plum blossom-like spots of blood. She held an alloy longsword, standing silently by the battlements, her posture straight as a pine, like a statue of a guardian goddess. Seeing Su Chen approach, a ripple passed through her eternally frozen eyes. "You shouldn't have come back," Yihongi said calmly. "This place can't be held. Whether it can be held or not, well, only know after trying." Su Chen walked up to her, handed her one of the Molotov cocktails, then pulled out a lighter. With a click, he ignited the firelight illuminated his young face, casting a long shadow that stretched down onto the sea of corpses surging like a tsunami below. In the distance, the setting sun was like blood dyeing the entire wasteland a mournful dark red. On that dark red horizon, the black tide of corpses like sludge overflowing from hell, driven by a desire to devour everything advanced on this isolated factory. The oppressive feeling of dark clouds pressing down, threatening to destroy the city, was enough to shatter the nerves of any ordinary person. But Su Chen smiled. He had had enough of the keyboard warriors in the modern world, enough of the capitalist faces. He was bubbling with pent-up anger with no outlet. At this moment, looking at those snarling zombies, he actually found them somewhat endearing. At least when these monsters wanted to eat you, they charged right at you instead of sending a legal letter. "Come on." Su Chen raised the bottle, blazing with fire, aimed at the endless sea of corpses below, and a hint of madness curled at the corner of his mouth. "Let's see how you fare against the fury of an industrial civilization." As night fell, the desolate world lost its last glimmer of light, leaving only suffocating darkness. But soon this darkness was shattered. A thunderous roar erupted, reminiscent of a slumbering giant awakening in fury. 500 meters from the factory's perimeter, the first line of defense was set. Gasoline barrels packed with homemade explosives and scrap iron nails detonated simultaneously at Su Chen's command. At that moment, art was an explosion. The fiery light shot into the sky, tearing through the night, while a colossal shockwave mixed with searing flames and deadly shrapnel swept outward in a circular motion. Hundreds of zombies at the epicenter of the explosion were instantly vaporized, leaving no trace behind. The zombies on the periphery were flung into the air like rag dolls in a washing machine, their severed limbs raining down. The originally pitch-black wasteland transformed into a hellfire inferno. The stench of charred flesh mingled with the aroma of roasted meat, inducing nausea. Luo Gang stood on the wall, excitedly pumping his fist, his face flushed by the glow of the flames. "Boss, this fire sea tactic is incredible. This took out at least 2,000. However, Su Chen's expression showed no sign of relaxation. "Don't celebrate too soon. This is just the appetizer." Indeed, while the fire sea had hindered the advance of ordinary zombies, it did not stop the tide of the undead. The zombies felt no pain, nor did they know fear. Those that fell forward were trampled by their companions, and some zombies ablaze crawled forward like hellish demons, roaring in defiance. Even more terrifying were the massive tank zombies. Their skin was as hard as iron, trudging through flames and shrapnel like biological war machines, carving a path through the inferno. "Prepare to receive guests," Su Chen coldly uttered for words, pulling back a canvas beside him. The canvas fell, revealing a menacing metallic beast. It was a modified 6-barrel Gatling gun fixed onto a heavy tripod, with a long belt of ammunition extending into a massive ammo box on the ground. This was the treasure of the store that Su Chen brought back from the modern world, his confidence against the zombie tide. In modern times, this was contraband. But in the apocalypse, this was justice, this was truth. Su Chen donned the T-800 type exoskeleton, his mechanical arm gripping the Gatling's handle steadily. The sound of the motor warming up echoed as the 6 barrels began to rotate, slowly gaining speed until they became a blur. Namo Gatling Bodhisattva, 6 barrels of pure, depleted uranium rounds. 3,600 rotations in a breath. Great compassion saves the world. Su Chen mumbled the famous internet meme, his finger decisively pulling the trigger. Da-da-da-da-da-da. A tempest of metal erupted in an instant. The flames spewing from the muzzle were a meter long, resembling an enraged fire dragon in the night. The dense barrage of bullets poured towards the most concentrated mass of zombies. This heavy weapon, with a firing rate of up to 6,000 rounds per minute, proved devastating against the densely charging enemies. The front line of zombies was instantly severed, as if swept by an invisible giant scythe. Their bodies were shredded midair by the large-caliber bullets, transforming into a mist of blood. What zombie virus? What undead body? In the face of absolute physical kinetic energy, all beings are equal. Su Chen felt as if his blood was on fire. The machine gun in his hands trembled violently, and the hydraulic system of the exoskeleton roared madly, countering the terrifying recoil. The sensation of mastering destruction, the violent aesthetics unleashed so recklessly, swept away the frustration he had accumulated in modern society over the past few days. To hell with the lawyers' letters. To hell with public opinion. I've got a gun. Left side. The left side is leaking. Luo Gang shouted as he operated a simple catapult, launching Molotov cocktails at the zombie horde on the flank. Bang! Bang! the bottles shattered, flames soaring. The area in front of the factory had turned into a hellish battlefield with gunfire explosions and the roars of zombies intertwining, composing a symphony of death. However, ammunition was limited. After 5 minutes of continuous fire, the Gatling's barrels were glowing red and emitting smoke. Catch up. With the last click, the bullet chain ran out. Damn it, out of bullets. Chen cursed, releasing the hot. Just then the ground suddenly shook violently. Roar! A deep growl pierced through the chaos of the battle. 3 pitch-black tank zombies finally broke through the firepower net. Their bodies were riddled with bullets, and some even had half of their shoulder destroyed, but this only spurred their ferocity. They ignored the Molotov cocktails thrown by Luo Gang, charging like crazed bulls head down, crashing violently into the factory's massive iron gate. Boom! A grating sound of metal twisting echoed. The thick reinforced iron door, 10 centimeters thick, was dented by their impact. Rivets at the connection flew off the wall, shook violently, and several cracks spread like spider webs. We can't hold them. Luo Gang's face turned pale. These power-type mutated zombies were born to assault cities. Boom! Another collision struck. The gate finally could bear the burden, no longer letting out a mournful cry as it collapsed. Amidst the rising dust, countless zombies surged through the breach like a flood breaching a dam. The defense line was breached. At this moment, all advantages of firearms vanished. Next came the most brutal and primal melee combat. Chen yanked off the hot exoskeleton connections from his body and drew a gleaming alloy combat knife from his back. It was custom-made from aerospace-grade titanium alloy capable of slicing through iron like mud. He gazed at the gap, his eyes devoid of fear, filled only with ruthless determination. Behind him was the production line, the foundation of his foothold in both worlds. There was no retreat. Hongi! Chen shouted, his voice piercing the night. Here! A cool white figure leaped down from above, landing gracefully beside Chen. Yihong's long sword angled towards the ground with not a single drop of blood on the blade, for her strikes were too swift to allow blood to linger. Prepare for close combat. We must not let them approach the production line even a step. Chen gripped the knife with both hands, the exoskeleton's power fully engaged, emitting a low hum. Kill! Kill! Chen roared in fury, charging forward like a cannonball, directly crashing into the horde of corpses flooding through the breach. The exoskeleton granted him 5 times the strength of an ordinary person. The alloy combat knife drew a chilling arc through the air. An ordinary zombie at the front had no chance to react before being cleaved in half from head to groin. Filthy blood splattered, drenching Chen, yet he didn't even blink. At that moment, he was blinded by rage. In this world where order had collapsed, there was no reason to be had. Only the knife in his hand was the sole pass. Die, die, die. Chen was like an unyielding meat grinder. Each slash he unleashed claimed a head or an arm. Sparks flew from the metallic armor of the exoskeleton. The sound of zombie claws scratching against it sent chills down one's spine. Beside him, Yihongi displayed a completely different fighting style. If Chen was a raging hammer, then Yihongi was a deadly scalpel. Her figure moved like a ghost among the horde, her white clothing billowing as if dancing on the edge of a blade. Each strike was extraordinarily precise, the sword's edge effortlessly grazing the necks and eye sockets of the zombies. There was no unnecessary movement, only utmost efficiency. Wherever she passed, zombies fell in droves, their bodies piling up like mountains. On the other side, Luo Gang wielded a heavy fire axe, slashing with great force, steadfastly guarding the left flank of the breach like a door god. Although he was already marked with several injuries, he still gritted his teeth and persevered, emitting beast-like growls. The 3 formed a triangular formation, creating a bloody fortress at the breach. However, there were simply too many zombies. They trampled over their fallen comrades, continuously surging forward. Chen felt his arms growing heavier. The power alert light of the exoskeleton was flashing wildly. At that moment, a roar echoed. The tank zombie that had previously broken through the door finally pushed aside the surrounding smaller monsters and appeared before Chen. Its enormous hand swung out suddenly, bringing with it a howling wind. Chen had no way to evade and could only brace himself with his knife. Clang! A terrifying force struck him. Chen was sent flying, crashing heavily against the wall behind him. A sweet taste filled his throat as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Boss! Luo Gang exclaimed. Before Chen could get back up, a shadow suddenly dropped down from the ceiling. It was a monster with no skin, its muscles exposed. An agile second-tier zombie, the Licker. It had been lurking in the shadows, waiting for the moment its prey showed a flaw. The Licker's long barbed tongue shot out like a venomous snake, aiming for the back of Chen's head. At that moment, Chen had just taken a heavy blow, and the exoskeleton system briefly malfunctioned, leaving him unable to dodge. The scent of death enveloped him instantly. Watch out! A chilling cry rang out. Yihongi, who had been clearing the smaller monsters on the other side, erupted with astonishing speed in that instant. She appeared before Chen as if she had teleported, forcefully shoving him aside. the sound of a sharp object piercing flesh. Su Chen watched helplessly as the long tongue that was meant for him pierced through Yi Hongyi's left shoulder. Blood instantly soaked her snow-white clothing. Hongyi. Su Chen's pupils dilated, his heart seemed to stop beating. Yi Hongyi let out a muffled groan, her complexion turning pale. Yet she did not fall, though instead drawing strength from the intense pain. The red glow in her eyes surged explosively. That was a sign of the overexertion of her mental strength. "Get lost," she shouted lowly. It was as if an invisible hand clenched tightly in the air. The 3 spare daggers floating at her waist, drawn by her mental power, instantly transformed into 3 streaks of silver light. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 3 daggers whirled and intertwined in the air like a meat grinder, instantly shredding the licker's head into minced meat. The licker let out a scream, its body falling from the ceiling. The crisis was averted. But Yi Hongyi's body swayed, and she fell limply. Su Chen dashed forward like a madman, catching her falling form. Looking at the gaping wound on her shoulder, watching the blood that flowed incessantly, Su Chen felt a string in his mind snap. Since arriving in this world, Yi Hongyi had been his most trusted companion, his sharpest sword. He had grown accustomed to her strength, accustomed to her indifference, yet forgotten that she was also flesh and blood. She had taken that blow for him. An unprecedented surge of violent emotion erupted from Su Chen's chest like a volcano. "You all shall die." Su Chen's eyes turned crimson, the veins on his neck bulging. "System. Exchange for adrenaline. Exchange for high-explosive grenades. Whatever you have, give it all to me," he roared in his mind. In the next second, Su Chen ignored the overload alarm from the exoskeleton and forcefully rebooted the system. He cradled the unconscious Yi Hongyi in one arm, while the other grasped the high-explosive grenade just exchanged, biting the pin open with his teeth. "Die, you scum." Boom, boom, boom. The continuous sound of explosions erupted within the horde of corpses. Su Chen, like a madman, braced against the shockwave of the explosions, slashing wildly at every living being before him. His knife techniques had lost all form, leaving only the purest instinct for slaughter. The tank zombie that had just sent him flying attempted to charge again, only to have Su Chen stuff a grenade into its mouth. Bang! The tank's head exploded like a watermelon. Su Chen carried Yi Hongyi drenched in blood, like a Shura rising from hell. The surrounding zombies were surprisingly intimidated by this terrifying aura, momentarily pausing in their actions. "Luo gang, cover me." Su Chen's voice was terrifyingly hoarse. He lifted his head, his gaze piercing through the dense horde of corpses, locking onto a deformed zombie 500 meters behind the tide. There, a grotesque zombie with an enormous head, which had not participated in the assault, was riding on a mutated dog, coldly observing this side. That was the commander of the horde, the brain region mutated zombie. As long as he killed it, the tide of corpses would turn to a scattering of ashes. To catch the thief, first catch the king. Su Chen tightened his grip on the already dull combat knife, his eyes icy, devoid of warmth. "Those who touch my people, I will make your entire clan pay the price." System. Take out all the gasoline barrels from the inventory. Right now. Su Chen's roar thundered in his mind, carrying a desperate, allure-nothing madness. The next second, the air before him twisted violently. Dozens of red iron barrels materialized out of thin air like a sudden torrential downpour, crashing headlong into the dense horde of zombies ahead. These barrels contained not only gasoline, but also homemade explosives and scrap iron nails that Su Chen had acquired from the modern black market. Each one an unstable reaper of death. Blow. Though the Gatling gun in Su Chen's hands was out of ammo, he still had the heat of its barrel, and one last high-explosive grenade meant for mutual destruction. He yanked the pin, aimed at the exact moment the barrels hit the ground, and hurled it with all his might. Boom! This explosion was more violent than any before. The chain detonation of dozens of barrels created a miniature earthquake at the heart of the zombie horde. A towering blaze instantly engulfed everything within a 50-meter radius. Countless zombies were torn to shreds by the shockwave, limbs and burning oil splattering everywhere. The once impenetrable wall of corpses was blasted open, carving a bloody path straight to the rear. "Luo gang, protect Red. Don't come over." Su Chen roared, leaving the surrounding zombies no chance to encircle him. The exoskeleton engine let out a strained groan as the hydraulic rods were pushed to their limits. He transformed into a streak of steel amidst the flames, stepping over burning bodies, charging straight for the big-head zombie 500 meters away. Capture the leader to defeat the horde. This was the only path to survival. The brain-mutated zombie riding the mutant hound clearly hadn't expected this human to dare a countercharge. A hint of human-like mockery flickered in its murky gray-white eyes. It didn't flee, it merely opened its fong-filled mouth slightly. Buzz! An invisible wave instantly radiated outward from it. Su Chen mid-charge suddenly felt as if a red-hot steel needle had pierced deep into his brain. Pain. Indescribable agony. The world before him blurred into double images, his ears filled with piercing tinnitus, as if countless people were screaming inside his skull. 2 streams of black blood trickled from his nostrils and the corners of his eyes. Warning: abnormal pilot brainwaves. High-intensity mental interference detected. Warning: consciousness fading. Advise immediate withdrawal from the battlefield. Red warning lights flashed frantically in his vision, and the system's synthesized voice became intermittent. Chen staggered, nearly falling into the sea of fire. Several agile zombies seized the opportunity to pounce, their claws scraping against his exoskeleton armor with piercing sparks. "Wanna play dirty? He'll play along." Chen bit his tongue hard. Uffed. The sharp pain jolted his nerves as a mouthful of hot blood sprayed out. Using that brief moment of clarity, he forcibly suppressed the dizziness in his mind. The shrewd calculations of a merchant vanished, replaced by the ferocity of a wasteland survivor. System: maximize pain suppression. Don't warn me unless I'm dying. Command confirmed. Pain suppression activated. The heaviness in his body instantly lifted, replaced by a deceptive lightness. Chen's eyes burned red as he fixed his gaze on the big-head zombie, and the exoskeleton beneath him surged again. 100 meters. 50 meters. 30 meters. The mockery in the big-head zombie's eyes vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. It hadn't expected this human's willpower to be so tenacious, enduring its mental assault and still charging. It opened its mouth to emit a second wave of shrieks while urging its mount to retreat. Too late. Chen had already reached it. With the last bit of power from the exoskeleton's booster, Chen leaped high, both hands gripping the already blunted titanium alloy blade, carving a full-moon arc through the air. This strike carried all the frustrations had endured in the modern world. This strike held the fury over Yi Hongyi's severe injury. This strike was for survival. Die! The blade split the air with a shrill whistle. The big-head zombie tried to block with its frail arms, but against the titanium alloy blade its bones were crisper than crackers. Thud! The blade fell. That enormous vein-covered head was cleaved in two like a rotten watermelon. Filthy brain matter mixed with black blood splattered all over Chen. The world fell silent. The oppressive mental pressure that had threatened to burst his skull vanished with that single stroke. Gore! The surrounding zombie horde, once frenzied, froze in unison. Deprived of their leader's mental link, the bloodthirsty red in their eyes quickly dimmed, reverting them to mindless, instinct-driven walking corpses. They looked around in confusion, then began tearing into each other in the crush, their formation crumbling instantly. We won. Chen leaned on his blade, panting heavily. Sweat and blood streamed into his eyes, stinging fiercely. The exoskeleton's battery was completely drained, locking rigidly onto his body. But he didn't collapse immediately. As a seasoned trader, even in this state his instincts drove him to loot. A mutant zombie of this level was sure to have a high-grade crystal core in its head. Chen suppressed his nausea and groped through the mess. Soon his fingers touched a hard, cold object. A thumb-sized crystal core emitting a faint silver glow. A second-order mental-type crystal core. Nice. Chen's heart leaped with joy. This item was priceless on the post-apocalyptic black market. Just as he was about to withdraw his hand, his fingers brushed against a hard metal object. Hidden in the pocket of the big-head zombie's tattered white lab coat was an exquisite silver metal box. The box's surface was engraved with a double helix DNA emblem and a line of faint blurred text: Federation Biolab Top Secret. What's this? Chen's curiosity piqued. He struggled to pry open the box's latch with his blood-stained fingers. Click! The box sprang open. A glass syringe secured in shock-absorbing foam lay quietly inside. The liquid in the syringe was a dreamlike, deep blue. Even under the dim firelight, it emitted a mesmerizing glow, as if containing a fragment of the starry sky. The moment Chen's eyes fell upon the syringe, the system's prompt in his mind turned urgent and sharp. Ding! High-energy item detected. Item name: First Order Gene Enhancement, Fluid Military Special Perfect Grade. Description: the pinnacle of pre-apocalypse Federation military technology. It can perfectly remove impurities from the human gene and unlock the gene lock without side effects. After injection, the host will directly ascend to a first-order evolver with a 300 boost in all attributes and a high probability of awakening a special ability. Valuation: priceless. Advise immediate use. Chen's hand trembled violently, nearly dropped. Gene fluid. And a perfect grade 1 at that. Having survived the apocalypse for so long, had heard of it. Ordinary survivors could only evolve by swallowing crystal cores on a gamble with a mortality rate of 90. Only core members of major factions could acquire inferior gene fluids. This military special grade existed only in legends. He never expected that this big-head zombie, once a researcher, had carried such a treasure. So this is what they mean by fortune favors the bold. Chen stared at the deep blue syringe in his hand, his heart pounding. The zombie horde in the distance had begun to scatter, and Luo Gang was sprinting toward him with Yi Hongyi on his back. The factory was safe. Su Chen clutched the metal box tightly, his gaze shifting to the unconscious Yi Hongyi, and then to his own frail body barely supported by the exoskeleton. In this cannibalistic world, external aids were ultimately just that, external. The exoskeleton would run out of power, and guns would run out of bullets. Only one's own strength was eternal. He knew that the opportunity to grow stronger had arrived. In the underground of the factory, a temporary medical room. The shadowless lamp here was brought over by Su Chen from the modern world, its bright white light dispelling the gloom of the wasteland, yet illuminating the bloodstains on the operating table, making them all the more glaring. Boss Sister Hongyi. Luo Gang, a towering man standing 2 meters tall, stood beside the operating table, looking as helpless as a child caught in a mistake. Shut up, go outside, and keep watch. Su Chen's voice was chillingly calm. He had already removed the discarded exoskeleton, wearing a bloodstained shirt, his hands swiftly disinfecting. Yi Hongyi lay silently on the operating table, her originally cool face now as pale as paper. The penetrating wound on her left shoulder was shocking, the skin around the wound showing a bizarre purple-black color. This was the toxin from the slurper's saliva spreading. In the apocalypse, such an injury would be equivalent to a death sentence. With a lack of medical supplies and the risk of infection, even divine intervention would be futile. But this was Su Chen's territory. System exchange for broad-spectrum antitoxin serum nanosutures type O plasma. Su Chen unhesitatingly spent the points he had just earned from killing zombies. With a flash of light, several life-saving supplies appeared out of thin air. Although Su Chen was not a doctor after spending time in the apocalypse, he was already proficient in basic surgical procedures. He swiftly removed the necrotic tissue, injected the serum, stitched the wound, and hung the plasma. As the dark red toxic blood was drawn out and healthy red blood was infused, Yi Hongyi's tightly furrowed brows finally relaxed slightly, and her breathing became steadier. The life signs on the monitor shifted from dangerous red back to stable green. Huff! Su Chen let out a breath, collapsing onto the cold floor. Only then did the fatigue suppressed by adrenaline wash over him like a tide. His bones protested, and he looked at the unconscious Yi Hongyi. This woman was too strong enough that he often forgot she was made of flesh and blood. This time you protect me, next time it will be my turn to protect you. Su Chen murmured softly to himself. He took out a silver metal box from his pocket. The deep blue genetic serum shimmered enticingly under the light. In this world of the survival of the fittest, weakness was the original sin. If it weren't for Yi Hongyi today, he would have already been killed by that slurper. The same was true in modern society. Without enough strength, Xinghai technology would have long been devoured by thunder energy, leaving no bones behind. He had had enough of this feeling of being beaten passively. Breaking the shackles starts today. A glint of determination flashed in Su Chen's eyes. He picked up the syringe, expelled the air, and located his carotid artery. Without any hesitation, the needle pierced his skin. The cool blue liquid was slowly pushed into his veins. 1 second. 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Boom. It was as if a burning bomb had exploded inside him. The originally cool medicinal liquid instantly transformed into scalding magma coursing through his blood. Su Chen's pupils dilated instantly, his body arched like a shrimp, and a suppressed roar escaped his throat. Pain. It was 10 times worse than the previous mental attack. This pain did not come from his skin, but from deep within every cell. He felt as if his bones were being crushed by an invisible hand, and then reassembled. Muscle fibers were torn apart inch by inch, and then woven back together. The genetic chain was breaking, then recombining. This was a leap in the level of life, a transformation from mortal to extraordinary. Ugh! Su Chen gripped the floor tightly, his nails breaking as he scraped out 10 bloody grooves on the cement ground. Sweat mixed with the black filth expelled from his body drenched his clothes. He wanted to faint, but the excruciating pain kept him utterly awake. He could clearly hear the sound of his heart beating heavy like a thunder drum. He could feel the blood rushing through his veins like a river breaking its dam. He did not know how long it had been, perhaps a century, perhaps just an instant. Su Chen's vision darkened, and he completely lost consciousness. When Su Chen opened his eyes again, the electronic clock on the wall showed that 4 hours had passed. He lay on the floor surrounded by a puddle of foul-smelling black sludge. That was the bodily impurities expelled from his pores, heavy metals, toxins, dead skin. So stinky. Su Chen frowned and climbed to his feet. As he moved, he was stunned. Light. Unprecedentedly light. His once heavy body seemed to have lost its gravity. He merely thought of getting up, and his whole person shot up, nearly hitting the ceiling. This? Su Chen landed and looked incredulously at his hands. His formerly pale skin had become as smooth and resilient as jade with long and powerful fingers. He walked to the sink, turned on the tap, and frantically washed off the dirt from his body. When the grime in the mirror was washed away, what was revealed was a body that could be deemed perfect. Although he did not have exaggerated bodybuilding muscles, the lines of each muscle flowed smoothly like a cheetah, exuding a sense of explosive power. His eyes, which had been somewhat murky due to staying up late, now became deep like the starry sky, with a hint of brilliance flickering in the depths of his pupils. Chen casually picked up a thick-bottomed glass cup nearby. At this moment, the cup felt as light as a piece of paper in his hand. He exerted a slight force with his fingers. Crack! He felt no resistance, and the hard-tempered glass cup instantly turned into a pile of crystalline powder spilling through his fingers. It was not shattering, but pulverizing. Is this what it means to be an evolver? Chen took a deep breath and looked at the grip strength tester in the corner used to test the exoskeleton. That was a special device with a range of up to 500 kilograms. He walked over and grasped it with one hand. With a sudden squeeze. Bang! The spring of the grip strength tester snapped and the dial shattered. It broke the scale. Chen was overjoyed. This strength was at least 5 times that of an ordinary person. Now, even without the exoskeleton, he could rip open a zombie's skull with his bare hands. Not just strength. He closed his eyes, calming his mind. In the next room, Luo Gang's thunderous snoring could be clearly heard 50 meters away in the corridor. The sound of a rat scurrying by was like it was right beside him. Even the trajectory of dust floating in the air became vividly visible in his eyes. Vision, hearing, reaction, speed, a comprehensive qualitative change. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully advancing to the first tier evolver. Current physical quality assessment: strength 5, 2 agility 4, 8 constitution 5, 0 mentality 3. 5 average value for ordinary people is 1. Congratulations to the host for obtaining new permissions. Cooldown time for the dual world portal reduced by 50. Storage space expanded to 20 cubic meters. The system's prompt sounded like heavenly music. Chen clenched his fists, feeling the surging power within him like a tidal wave. This feeling of being in control of everything was somewhat intoxicating. This is the taste of power. He turned his head and glanced at the clock on the wall. Modern time, 9 a.m. Less than an hour until the press conference of Shanghai Technology. In that world, Thunder Energy was sharpening its knives. Countless keyboard warriors were waiting to see his jokes, and the capital crocodiles were opening their blood-stained mouths ready to devour his company. In the past, Chen might have felt anxious and pressured. But now, a cold smile crept onto Chen's lips, a smile belonging to a predator. He walked to the wardrobe and took out the Haiyun suit he had prepared long ago for the press conference. The press conference on the modern side is about to start. As Chen buttoned up, he looked at his transformed self in the mirror, his eyes reflecting a chilling aura. Thunder Energy, are you ready to face my wrath? In Haiyun City at the International Convention Center, the scene of Shanghai Technology's new product launch was set. Following Chen's instructions, Zhang Hong had rented the largest hall, capable of accommodating 3,000 people. Yet at this moment, the vast venue was suffused with an awkward and chilly silence. 3,000 seats, sparsely scattered, fewer than 50 people were seated, over half of whom were live-streaming influencers holding up their phones, while the rest were a few second-rate media journalists wearing sneers. As for the distributors and partners who had originally promised to attend, not a single one showed up. Above the podium, the massive LED screen displayed the words Shanghai Technology, a revolutionary energy release, which seemed especially ironic in the empty hall. In the backstage lounge, Zhang Hong was as frantic as an ant on a hot pan. His tie was askew, and he was drenched in sweat, roaring into his phone. What do you mean traffic jam? You can't make it. Oldly, we signed a letter of intent. Hello. Damn it. Zhang Hong hurled his phone onto the sofa in frustration, collapsing into it with a look of utter despair. It's over, completely over. Mr. Su hasn't arrived, and neither have the guests. Thunder Energy just made it known that anyone who dares to show support is opposing them. Now the entire business community in Haiyun is laughing at us. The assistant beside him was too terrified to breathe, pointing at the livestream comments on the tablet. Mr. Zhang, the online insults are even worse. Zhang Hong leaned in to take a look. In the live stream, the comments were dense, all unanimous in mockery. Is this the Shanghai Technology that claimed to punch Thunder Energy and kick Tesla? Hilarious, there's not even a fly at the scene. Waiting for the train wreck. The last hurrah of a scam company. I just want to see what Chen looks like. Does he have the face of a con artist? Don't bother waiting, he's probably already taken the money and run. How could he dare to show his face? Seeing these venomous comments, Zhang Hong felt darkness closing in before his eyes. Just then a hidden door in the lounge slid open silently. It was the secret passage connecting to Chen's private storeroom. Who said I ran away? A calm yet magnetic voice suddenly rang out in the room. Zhang Hong spun around. Chen emerged slowly from the shadows. He wore a tailored, deep black handmade suit, an immaculate white shirt, and a perfectly knotted tie. But what truly stunned Zhang Hong was not his attire, but his aura. It was still the same face, still the same. Yet at this moment he resembled a peerless, fearsome weapon just retrieved from a pool of blood and polished clean. His gaze was calm and deep, yet carried an indescribable pressure. It was the oppressive presence of an evolver who had walked through mountains of corpses and slain monsters with his own. Merely being glanced at by Su Chen left Zhang Hong breathless, his hair standing on end. The anxiety and panic were instantly replaced by an instinctive reverence. Su. Mr. Su. Zhang Hong stammered. What's the panic? Su Chen walked to the mirror and meticulously adjusted his cuffs. His movements were elegant and composed, as if the scene outside was not a siege against him, but a coronation awaiting him. A small crowd is good. Su Chen looked at his reflection, a playful smile curling at the corner of his mouth. A small crowd means better air. It saves the trouble of scaring too many people to death. There wouldn't be enough ambulances. But Mr. Su, the internet is full of insults. Insults. Su Chen chuckled softly, turning toward the door. Remember, in the face of absolute power, all noise is the lament of the weak. He pushed open the lounge door. Outside was the corridor leading to the stage. Light from the spotlight streamed from the end, illuminating every speck of dust. At the front stage, what time is it? Isn't it starting? Did he really run away? Refund? Oh no, it's free. Then refund my internet fee. Several influencers were stirring up trouble in their live streams, and the few dozen audience members began to jeer, some even threatening to throw their water bottles onto the stage. Just as the scene was about to spiral out of control, a steady, powerful footstep echoed clearly through the venue via the microphone. The clamor paused eerily for a second. Then all the lights went out, leaving only a single spotlight aimed directly at the stage entrance. In that beam of light, Su Chen walked out with one hand in his pocket, his pace unhurried. There was no host to announce him, no usherette to guide him, no stirring background music. He stepped onto the massive stage alone, yet the moment he stood there, the entire stage seemed to shrink. The powerful aura naturally emitted after genetic evolution spread through the room. The influencers who had been shouting fell silent instinctively when their eyes met Su Chen's, even feeling an inexplicable palpitation. It was the natural suppression of a higher life form over a lower one. Su Chen walked to the center of the stage, facing the sparse audience and the row of dark camera lenses. He didn't pick up a speech or introduce himself. He merely swept his gaze across the room, his eyes carrying 3 parts indifference, 3 parts mockery, and 4 parts nonchalance. That single glance caused a momentary vacuum in the frenzied barrage of comments in the live stream. Such a powerful aura. Countless viewers thought this in their minds. Su Chen raised his hand and tapped the microphone lightly. A crisp sound echoed through the empty hall. Many people ask me why I don't hire celebrity endorsements or put on a grand opening dance. Su Chen's voice came through the speakers, low and penetrating. Because I don't think it's necessary. He held up 3 slender fingers, waving them in the light. Today's launch will last only 3 minutes. The audience erupted. The live stream exploded. Arrogant. Too arrogant. 3 minutes. Do you think you're Ultraman? Su Chen ignored the noise, his smile growing more pronounced. A confident grin of absolute control. Because showcasing our product, changing this world. He lowered his hand, his gaze sharp as lightning, staring into the camera, as if piercing through the screen to see the stunned faces of Thunder Energy's executives. 3 minutes is more than enough.